Alrighty, everybody, welcome back. Gonna kill the music. We have music now. Watch out. When it gets to lab time, we got some nice chill hop, lo-fi vibes for us to listen to as we work. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. The question to start off the stream today is, would you rather your only mode of transportation be a donkey or a giraffe? So please go ahead and throw that in Twitch chat, donkey or giraffe. All right. Welcome back, everyone. So tonight, for those that are new, we're doing a free web development bootcamp. So far, we've covered the basics of HTML and a little bit of CSS. We originally started as a means for folks that were affected by the pandemic to see if a career in web development could be a good fit for them. So we're continuing right along with our class 5 tonight. If you want the slides, you can just do !slides in the Twitch chat, and you'll get the link to the live slides. Those live slides, what they do is, as I move through the slides, you all move through the slides. So if you don't want it to auto advance, just chop off the /live and you'll have access to the regular old slides. If you would like the materials to follow along tonight, join our Discord. Just do !Discord. And in that channel is a follow along channel where you can go ahead and download all the materials that we'll need for today. We have 4 different sets of starter code, a brand new template, a lot of code in there. So make sure you go ahead and download that as folks kind of get into chat. Welcome back, everyone. Ghost said Leon is a beacon of light at the end of my dark tunnel. Thank you, Leon, for the help. Hey, happy to have you. You've been great. Been always loving your answers in Twitch chat. Welcome back, everyone. Cool. The question, in case folks are just getting here, is, would you rather your only mode of transportation be a donkey or a giraffe? Now, I think donkey's a little bit more practical. Might be able to carry a little bit more. Giraffe, though, has the height. Definitely going to stand out. Curly Gang, yes, very voluminous today. We have some individuals that are really taking advantage of the height gain they would get with the giraffe today. Oh, I do like Last Avatars. The giraffe has a stronger kick. Big facts. Might be able to protect you a little bit more. They also do that. Like, if you haven't looked at giraffes fight before, definitely do yourself a favor and go on YouTube and find giraffes fighting. They like slam their heads into each other. It's really amazing. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Oh, Rossi says, I'm more practical. I got to go with the donkey. Cool, everybody. So what we're going to do first, as always, is I'm going to open it up to questions. So we'll do questions first, and then once there are no more questions, we'll jump right into the agenda for today. So let me share the agenda first, and then I'll open it up to questions. So today is all about reviewing a little bit of HTML, going back through a lot of the CSS that we've already covered. We're going to touch on a little bit of responsiveness today and just make sure we're really solid going into Thursday. On Thursday, we're going to do fully responsive websites, really take it to the next level, learn a little bit of flex, a little bit of grid. That way we can build pretty much any layout that we want, any website that we want. It'll look good across all the devices. And then starting next week, JavaScript. All right, so I want the last 2 weeks to be JavaScript. And so this and next class will be our last 2 classes on CSS. I'll do an office hours for more kind of like CSS review and follow up, but try and get all your questions out this class and next class. That way we can go into JavaScript with clear heads. Yes, this is true. I have a original non-hacked Gen 1 Mew on a Pokemon Blue cartridge. Yes. I also have it backed up on a Flash file as well. I got it from the 1997 Pokemon tournament where they gave out Mews. I also have my official certificate of authenticity for that Mew. So it's my most prized Pokemon possession. Cool. Let's take a look at the agenda, just so folks know what we're getting into, and then I'll open it up to questions. Cool. So we're going to review just a little bit of HTML fundamentals for folks that just want a little bit of a refresher, just make sure those topics are fresh in our heads. We're going to review some of the CSS fundamentals. We're going to do another practice problems. We're going to do lots of practice problems today, just to make sure everybody's feeling really comfortable. We're going to do some practice problems with the box model, reviewing float. We're going to go through the 3 simple layouts that are technically due on Thursday, but I want to make sure we have some time to review them. We're going to learn just a little bit about responsiveness and what a responsive website is and how we make our sites look good across all of our devices. And then the homework will be to build a simple responsive website. So, questions. Cookie Code says, I've never played Pokemon. Fight me. That's the point of Pokemon. You're supposed to battle each other, so we can battle later. Can you explain the use and omission of spaces and how this makes a difference in terms of CSS selectors? All right, so in a CSS selector, when you have a space between 2 elements, that denotes a parent-child relationship. All a parent-child relationship really means is that some content is inside of other content. So you might have like an H1 inside of a section. To represent that relationship, you would do section space H1. That means that H1 is inside that section, and you're selecting the H1 that is inside of that section. Another question came in. Do you have to have a heading for each section? I used a W3 validator to check my code, and it said that I need a heading for each section. I believe the MDN, and I would have to double check this. The MDN says that each section most likely has a heading, but I believe the newest, most up-to-date specification is that it does not have to. But I would have to double check that. If the W3 validator is saying it must have a heading, I probably would trust that. But I do remember reading something where sections typically should have a heading, but might not necessarily be forced to have one. But I'd have to review that, honestly. So I think it's like a really weird, I don't think it's like weird, I think it's like a very small edge case type thing to think through that. So I think for now, if you're building out sections, those sections are probably going to have headings. Go for it. But when you're first starting out and you're building your first few websites, it doesn't have to be perfect, folks, right? You have your whole career to become an expert. Get the content on the page, get it rendering, get it showing up, get it working, and that's good enough, especially when you're first starting out. A lot of folks get held up on these very small nitty-gritty details. It's okay, if you're interested, you want to learn, and you want to pick up on those details, yeah, go for it. That's amazing. But when you're first learning, you're doing your first couple websites, don't get hung up on that stuff. Come back to it later on, and you'll be able to spend more time kind of nerding out over the little things like that. No. Let's go ahead. I'm going to scroll up a little bit here in chat just to catch some of the other questions. I have a question. Do you suggest starting with incorporating frameworks or standalone libraries for just starting out? No. I think you should learn the basics on their own. And then once you understand why a library or framework would help you, then incorporate it. Right? If you don't know why a library or framework could help you, don't start using it, right? I'm also kind of a purist when it comes to other things too. I don't like tools that help you do the basics early on. I don't like tools that will lint or hint your code. I don't like tools that'll save and refresh stuff in the browser for you. I think if you're brand new to coding, you should be doing all that stuff manually until you feel like you're comfortable with it, and then incorporate tools into your workflow to kind of ease the burden of those things. Nothing sucks worse than going into an interview and you can't remember how to save your files correctly because Live Reload's been doing it for you the whole time. So just be careful in the beginning. Incorporate tools as you realize what benefit you're going to get out of them. Alpine said object-oriented programming in JS. Yes, we'll get to object-oriented programming in JS. Alyssa says, have you heard about these Google certificates? Apparently people are getting real mad about them. I recently read something about I like saw like their launch page for it, but honestly I don't know too much about them. My general advice with certificates are, if you're talking about certificates in like web dev or software engineering, they're not really useful other than helping you study more. Nobody's going to look at a certificate and be like, oh, wow, you have that certificate. One job. Here's one job for that certificate. That's a little bit different in things like networking and tech support and things like that. But in software engineering, nobody's going to be like, oh, you have a certificate. Here's a job. So be careful with those. K Dodge in the house asking chat how we're doing. Love it. A friend is wanting to build an online clothes shop and asked if it's better to do it on Shopify versus me taking it as a project. What do you think? If somebody's depending on it for their income or livelihood, use industry standard tools, right? Shopify is just going to make it really easy. The interesting thing about Shopify is there's a lot of lifting. Like, it's not just like click and you're done. So you could probably still use Shopify for your friend and handle all the customization and all that stuff for them. That takes the headache away from them, gets you a little bit of experience. And so you could still use Shopify. There's still going to be a lot that's going to be needed for it kind of to all start working well. K-Dodge, are you going to start us with ES6? Yes, I'm going to start with ES6. I'm going to explain a few things that are not ES6, like var and things. Well, technically it's still part of ES6, but like things that would look more ES5 and below. For those that don't know, JavaScript kind of updates every so often, just kind of like how we talked about the W3C for HTML and for CSS. Well, there's another body that handles JavaScript and it updates. And so we're going to be talking about the most current stuff. I will throw in some of the more common things that you'll run into that were prior to ES6. Miriam said, in my free time, I was trying to CSS the BBC homework just because I was able to make the navbar float up. And when I was able to, they were all stacked on top of each other. So if you're floating stuff, this is why like people have kind of moved on from floats. You get into some really weird stuff when you start floating content. You could have just set all your LIs to float to the left and they would have sat next to each other. There are also things like inline, but if you're sticking with float, just float left on the LIs. Cool, kind of going through. I was checking out the repo on GitHub for the Learn with Leon website. I have a couple of questions. I didn't know I had a Learn with Leon website. I don't know what website you're talking about. You mean like my personal website, like leonnoel.com? If you're talking about that, that's using React and Gatsby. So I'm not actually hand coding the output of that site. That site's being generated based on all the stuff I'm running on my computer. So that's why it might look a little bit weird. So if you're looking at my personal website, that's not going to be the bastion of like semantic HTML and CSS because it's being spit out by a generator. Most blogs have something that's helping you create the post because you don't want to have to hand code each page. A lot of big websites use, we talked about this last class, I believe, a CMS, a content management system. And that CMS sits behind the scenes and helps create new pages. So you don't have to have a developer do it every single time. Luck Monkey said, maybe you'll get into this today, but should you try to use grid in most situations over flex? I just got the hang of flex this weekend, laugh out loud. So we're going to do that on Thursday. So on Thursday, we'll talk about Flexbox and grid and talk about some use cases for when you would use them and why you would use them. Like I said prior to like a couple classes ago, I think all these technologies are just like tools on your tool belt. Right? And you're going to use that specific tool when the task at hand requires it. So tune in on Thursday and we'll kind of break down like why we should use one over the other. I don't want to get into it right now because I just don't want to confuse folks that are still trying to wrap their mind around floats before we move on to flex and grid. Ghost said, thank you for giving us the focus on the work. I'm getting stuck on technicalities in some of the work. Yeah. When you're first starting out, let those technicalities go by the wayside. Let them slide for now. You can always come back and refactor your code, make it better, make it more performant, make it best practices. I always like to say this, and it's going to be a little bit gross. I think when you're first learning to code, you should vomit out all your code and then clean it up later, right? Like you're going to vomit everything out, get it working, make it look good in the browser, and then refactor it later. Refactoring's for closers, right? Once you get it working, it's up there, it's running, come back, refactor it, really nitpick over the best practices. But that's not the first step. Get it all out on the page. Knight said the layout homework, we're only supposed to use floats. I got frustrated because I couldn't make my page look like the formats. I went on YouTube and learned how to use grid templates and figured it out that way. So it was supposed to be floats, but if you went ahead and did grid and flex, totally fair game. Like I said, I just wanted to introduce you to the technique that's been around for a long time that you might run into in the wild. And for some reason, a lot of my students just have a better understanding of how things move, especially in relation to the box model when they start with floats. So that's why I wanted to cover it first before moving into flex and grid, and then I would definitely advocate for flex or grid going forward. I don't think you have to redo it, Knight. I think you're good. Alpine asks thoughts on low code or no code. I think for MVPs, minimal viable products, like the simplest thing that you're going to do to prove that your site or your application works and it can get customers, low code or no code solutions can be really beneficial. But I think once you start trying to get anything past an MVP stage, I haven't really seen too many that have made it. And I think you lose a lot of flexibility. So I think they're really good for MVPs, but I wouldn't rely on a no code solution for my business. If you have zero background for coding work, are certifications better than nothing on your resume? Certifications won't hurt. I just don't want anybody to think that a certification is going to like make getting a job like it's gonna give you a job. Like there's no certification that in software engineering like you get a job. So you can collect certifications, you can do them. They're really good for like focusing your studying habits. But at the end of the day, most employers really only care about two things: can you code, and do they want to work with you for the next 2 years? And so I think most folks, if they're going to put 100 hours into a certification versus 100 hours into like Elite Code or Code Wars, I would probably go Elite Code for software engineering. There are tons of IT jobs and roles and things like that where certifications are king and can get you to a job. But software engineering, web development, not so much. Cool. Windward High said, do you have a course on any site like Udemy, etc.? I don't have a course yet. I'm also of the persuasion that I never want to charge for a course. I haven't said this publicly yet, but it's something I've been thinking about for a while, and it's definitely something I'm gonna build out. So I'm building a course right now that's going to take you from the basics, HTML, CSS, all the way through full stack web development. And I'm going to release it for free. I adamantly believe education should be free. And so I'll never release a course that you can't get all the material for free. May I charge for a course? Sure. If you want to give me money for it, give me money for it. But everything, all the videos, everything will always be free. That's just something I really believe in. And so I find right now there's a lot of people trying to sell a dream right now, and it really bothers me. Like I get like choked up thinking about it because I see a lot of my students that are already in the throes, they're already struggling, and they're getting persuaded to drop hundreds of dollars on these courses that just aren't going to help them. So I'm never going to release anything that's not free. Yeah. So I do have a course coming. It's going to be a big course. It'll be absolutely free, and I would love to do it live here on Twitch. So if you're down for following along with like a live full stack course that's going to be completely free, follow us here. Follow me on Twitter. I'm going to announce it soon. Cool. Kind of scroll up a little bit here to get some of the other questions. What are some good news dev sites to follow and new updates that come in web dev? I think this is a really good question. Tuccini, thank you for asking this question. So like, what are good sites to follow as a new developer? I think this is one of the biggest things that helps my students and myself when it comes to like being a more rounded developer, and doing well in interviews. And that's reading dev-related content every day. There's a couple big websites that I read every single day. One is Hacker News, and the other is Reddit. So I have Reddit set up to where I have all of my subreddits that are related to programming in a multi-Reddit, so I can like just read programming stuff every day. And I visit Hacker News every day. Those two are my like big favorites. I'm on there every day. Hacker News is great because it's really just developer focused. A lot of really great developers are on there. Somebody will say like, this framework sucks, and then the person that wrote the framework like is in the comments saying like, no, you're wrong, here's why. So there's really great community. It's really great people. Really strong developers hang out there. So Hacker News is the first one, and then Reddit, but you have to curate it to be just programming stuff. There are other ones like Product Hunt and stuff like that like get you on top of like tech news, but those two are my favorite. Scrolling through the questions here. Cool. So I think those are kind of all the big questions here. Somebody asked, what's your thought on the Odin project? I think it's a great place to get started. I think they've done a great job of like pulling together a lot of great resources. They have a JS track now, which is pretty cool. I think if you're going to pick somewhere to start, that might be one of the better places to start. Ghost said, how do you make a living with free courses? You don't. I have a day job. And so my day job, I help run a free nonprofit coding bootcamp. And so that's how I survive. And like I said, like just because you're putting out free content doesn't mean that people won't support you, right? Doesn't mean people won't subscribe or pay the full price for a book. Like one of my favorite books of all time is Eloquent JavaScript. Eloquent JavaScript is completely free online. It's really dense, and so a lot of students struggle with it. But it's it's like my favorite programming book. It's one of my favorite programming books. But he released it all for free online, and it's also carried in Barnes & Noble. So if you want to go buy a Dead Tree version, you can go buy it. If you want to pay him money for it, you can pay him money for it. But if you want it for free and you need it for free, it's there. And I think that should be the main model of education. So that's what I'll probably do going in the future. I'll share Reddit and Hacker News as a link in our Discord channel, because I realized that people can't post links right now. Sorry. I gotta give some folks some mod. If you would like to be a mod here on Twitch and you're following along with all the streams, hit me up on Discord that you might want to be a mod, just so I can give you like power to post links and stuff like that. Cool. All right. I think that's all the big questions that came through. Let's dive into today, folks. I'm really excited. I for those that are following along and that were lucky enough to get into the first cohort of the boot camp, if you go on Schoology, all your homework should be graded for the BBC and the brownie recipe. Just gave comments like the big things I thought that were missing or things that you could add, but the work was really good. I was really impressed by all the work that got submitted. Took me a while. There's 50 plus of y'all, so it took me a while to get through everything. But it seemed like everyone had a really like good handle on some HTML. And there are some common quirks that I think we're going to review today just to go over them. Cool. So the agenda, we're going to review HTML. We're going to cover the CSS fundamentals again. So like I said, if you were struggling or it was kind of a little hard to follow along, it's okay. We're going to review today. We're going to review the box model. It's so important. I want to make sure we spend a little bit more time on it. We're going to go over all the float stuff that's technically due on Thursday, just because I want to get ahead of it so that way we can spend more time on responsiveness on Thursday. We're going to cover a little bit of responsive basics, and then your homework will be to build a simple responsive website. And so that'll take us through until next week when we'll hit JavaScript. All right. Let's bring it all the way back, folks. All the way back to the beginning. All right. What's the internet? Go ahead and throw it in Twitch chat for me. What's the internet? I want to see what you still remember in Twitch chat. What's the internet? Oh, it feels like so long ago. It's only been, what, 2 weeks ago? Bugaboo said a wire in the ocean. That's true. A network of computers. Taco smell. Everything. Dominoes. I'll take Dominoes. I think Dominoes is the top answer here. A wire. Cat pictures. Cats. Network of computers. Beautiful. Seems like the consensus here is cats and network of computers. And I think those are two excellent ways to think about it. We have a bunch of different devices that are connected via the internet, and in some cases, a very real physical wire that's laid across the ocean. But we have two different kinds of devices that are out there on the internet. We have client-side devices and we have server-side devices. Client-side devices are devices that we use to access the internet. It's the devices that we have in our pockets via our phones, our laptops, our desktops. We might have refrigerators that are client-side devices, but it's what we use to access the information that's coming through, right? So our client-side devices are really good at doing one really specific thing, and that's making requests. Requests go out there across the internet, they make it to a server, and then the server is just another computer that has code running on it. That code can hear the request, it helps generate the response, and it will respond. And what we've been learning so far is that that server will respond with HTML, CSS, and next week we'll start learning about the JavaScript that it could also respond with. That HTML and CSS goes back across that wire. It makes it all the way back to our client-side devices. And those client-side devices render the HTML and the CSS and the JavaScript so we can see what we see in the browser. Okay? So that's the quick 60-second overview. So I'm glad that everyone still remembers. It's all about dominoes, cats, and wires in the ocean. But this idea of client-side, server-side is really important. And the idea that a server has code running on it that can listen to those requests opens up the idea of something that we talk a lot about, which is called full stack web development, right? When folks say, hey, Leon, what's the quickest way into a job in software engineering? I say full stack JavaScript. And what that means is that you're learning not only the JavaScript that'll run on client-side devices, but the JavaScript that'll run on server-side devices, the JavaScript that'll listen to the requests and generate the responses and go on from there. Cool. All right. Seems like we have a lot of folks kind of getting here right now. So once again, if you want the slides to follow along, do !slides. It'll get you the slides for today. There's a live, like a /live at the end of it. That will mean, so like as I'm moving along, you'll move along. But if you don't want that, chop off the /live and you'll just have the regular old slides. And if you would like the materials for today, !Discord, and inside our Discord channel, you have to agree to the rules. Once you agree to the rules, all the other channels open up and you can download the materials and the follow along materials. Yeah, Kennedy 960 said, JavaScript full stack involves Node, right? Yes. If you take the base language of JavaScript and you give it the stuff it needs for client-side devices and the DOM, you wind up with JavaScript. If you take that base language and you give it things that a server needs, like network access or disk access, you wind up using a technology called Node. They're both the same syntax at the end of the day. Just Node is made for running on servers and JavaScript is made for running on client-side devices and elsewhere. So yes, JavaScript all across the stack. Cool. All right, let's keep pushing. The golden rule that we've talked about time and time again, separation of concerns. Our content and our structure should be solely in HTML. Our style and positioning and things like that, the presentation should be solely in CSS, and any of our behavior and interaction should solely be in JavaScript. I was gonna ask why is this important, and I love it. Oh my god, that fills my heart. People are already answering organization in chat because they knew it was coming, right? They knew it was coming. The reason why this golden rule is important and why I always ask it is for organization. It helps you stay organized so that when you come back to your code and you want to make something pink, you can go to the CSS. When you want to add a little bit more content, you can go to the HTML. When you want to make your site drag and drop, you know that that's JavaScript and the behavior interaction. So that separation of concerns helps you stay organized. It also helps your team stay organized. When you're working with other developers, if they agree to this convention, you know where to go to fix things and to work on things. Cool. David said, do we have time travelers here? Nah, they're just very studious students. All right. Just to kind of clean up shop here, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on HTML in case for some folks that maybe missed the class or are catching up and want to kind of get a quick jolt of HTML. Here is the syntax for HTML, right? HTML revolves around one core idea, and that's all your content must be wrapped in a tag, right? So every bit of content. One of the biggest things I saw that I kind of commented on in the homeworks were that folks had some loose content, maybe a paragraph or a span here that was kind of hanging. All your content must be in a tag, okay? So here we have a paragraph, we have a lovely opening tag, and we have a lovely closing tag, right? Open, close. You'll notice the only key difference between an opening and a closing tag is this lovely little /, right? And then the other thing is that our opening tags can have attribute value pairs. They're a little bit of superpowers that we can give to each tag. Some tags need a little bit more information to work correctly. An anchor tag is always going to need a place to be linked to, which is an href. In last class, we learned a little bit about classes and IDs that enable us to start targeting specific elements when it gets to CSS. Cool. Yeah, Young and Fox. Kishante said, hey, Amazon and emails are the exceptions for the separation of concerns. Yes, they both have violations or times when we would not adhere to separation of concerns. Emails don't have a separate style sheet in most cases, and Amazon pioneered something called a critical path CSS. But if you're not Amazon, you're not running emails, you're probably going to adhere to separation of concerns. Cool. Time for some tags. Let's review the quick most primary tags here. Talk about some of the things I saw in the homework that might need to be reviewed for a few seconds. Heading elements. You can have H1s through H6s. Traditionally, you're going to have one H1 because it represents the most important content on the page. But you don't have to go straight down the line, and you don't have to have H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sequentially. You can have a bunch of H2s. You can have a bunch of H3s. As long as the content is of the same importance, you're going to keep them at the same heading. So I had a few folks in the homeworks that just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight down the line. But what you really want to do is you want to say, all right, is this content as equally as important as this content? And if it is, we want to go ahead and make sure that they're the same heading element. Jazzface said, I've been writing React for so long, class looks so weird now. Love to do a React class one day and we'll understand what that means. Cool. Remember, as we get into CSS land, we're not using our heading elements based on how big they're going to look, right? We're basing it on importance. And in fact, today, in the template I'm going to share with you all, there's going to be a CSS sheet that actually makes all of these heading elements look exactly the same. So only your style will dictate what they look like in the browser. Stay tuned for that. Some other elements that we have come up a little bit in the homework that people might have had a little bit of quandary about. When to use paragraph, when to use span. There's no 100% rhyme or reason for exactly when you're going to. You can read the MDN specification, but my rule of thumb, sentence or more, paragraph, short piece of text, span. Pre-tag's an abomination, we don't use it. You can also have spans inside of other text level elements. Containing elements. This seemed to be the the biggest kind of differentiator in the homework, the biggest thing that folks kind of disagreed with. Some folks using heavy divs, which I would advocate against. Some folks not using enough sections. Some folks using articles or asides when they shouldn't really probably be using them. So let's step through each of these and talk about when we would use them. Divs lost kind of their semantic meaning. And it's not really true to say they lost it. There's just so many new elements with HTML5 that the semantic difference is so great. There are very true semantic reasons when you're going to use the rest of these containing elements, right? And so the div kind of falters to the side because it doesn't have a true semantic purpose or true semantic meaning. Sections are going to be kind of your main workhorse in terms of containing elements. That section is going to block off like sections. And then I saw a lot of folks get kind of tripped up with the article tag. An article should really be for articles. Think like newspaper articles, blog posts, things that could be shared. Like you could clip them out the website, hand it to somebody else, and it would work. You shouldn't use article as just like a containing element. And I think a lot of folks got confused on the BBC because the BBC had like these sections that were linking to articles. The page that got linked to would probably be an article, but like that block that doesn't have the full article would be a section, probably not an article tag. An aside, right? An aside is for ancillary or extra content, things that if we remove from the page would still function. Kcoffs already has it, right? Like a sidebar would be one, and Kdoge said ads would be another good reason, right? We'll use the aside for things that if we got rid of, the site would still function. A really good example of that are ads and sidebars. If we remove them from the page, things still work. Cool. Header and footers. Headers for content at the beginning of a document, footers for content at the end of a document. Notice I didn't say top or bottom. And there's something really interesting. If you read the MDN, you would know that articles can also have their own headers and footers. Also, if you read the MDN, you might know that sections can now each have their own H1. So kind of some things changed when we got these new containing elements. And so it's kind of, you got to kind of stay on top of those things that have changed. But overall, sections are going to be the main thing that you're using here. You're going to use articles when semantically efficient. You're going to use asides when semantically efficient. Headers and footers when semantically efficient. And divs when there really is no semantic meaning that you can apply. That's what's left over. An article would carry multiple paragraphs. Yeah, it could at Wolfpack. I think an article would typically have content, and that content will probably often be paragraphs. Yep, and a section could be a preview of an article. True, yeah. So you could have a section that's going to link to an article eventually. There might be an anchor tag somewhere in there. Folks, if you're just joining us, you can do exclamation point slides to get the slides to follow along. If you want the materials to follow along, exclamation point Discord. Once you agree to the rules of the Discord, you can use the follow along materials channel to get all the starter code. Cool. Well done, folks. All right. What I want to do now is I want to work through the BBC homework. I want to talk through some of the decisions that you've made. But before we write any code, what I want to do is just mark it up. So I'm going to pull up the image, and from the image, I'm going to pick the tags that we'll eventually code out together. So give me 1 second to pull up this image. All right, here's the image. I'm going to pull it on screen now. Make it a little bit bigger. All right. So here's the image for the BBC. Luck Monkey said, if you wanted to break up a section in a section, would you use div? If there was no semantically superior choice. According to the W3C, I actually reread this all last week. You can have sections inside of sections. That's totally semantically valid. But the things that you're making those internal sections have to be appropriately sections, if that makes sense, right? So you got to make sure that you're following the rules. For folks that are getting tripped up on divs versus section, I highly recommend go read the MDN. Read when a section is important and when you should use it and when it is semantically correct. That's what I do. When I'm unsure what tag to use, I go to the MDN and I read all about it. All right, let's break this down real quick and then we'll code it out. So if I'm looking at this image, I see 3 main areas, right? And not main tag, just like main is like a general term. So here I have this all black section up top. I have a very clear grouping here, and then I have a grouping at the bottom. Okay. In Twitch chat, what would this grouping at the top be? This black grouping at the top. What tag would we use there for that top grouping? Go ahead and throw it in chat. Yeah. All right. I'm seeing a mix of both here. I'm seeing header and nav. And correct, you're both correct. If you said header, you're correct. If you said nav, you're correct. I think the header is going to be holding the nav here. So we're going to have a header, which will be the whole top area. And inside that header, we're going to have a nav. So let's go ahead and say, all right, inside we have a header, we have a nav. Inside that nav, we're going to use our normal structure, UL, LI, anchor tags. We have some other things like an image and maybe like a form on the right-hand side, but all of that can be contained in the header. So let's say header for now. Cool. How about this area here? What would I use to contain this area there? What would that be? What tag would I looking for there? What tag am I looking for there? Sipping on some green tea today. It's quite tasty. Yeah, it's a section. Yeah, it's one big section, and that section is going to contain all that information. And then if that's a section, then this grouping down here would also be one big what? It'll be one big what? It is, I only drink the finest of green teas. So for those asking, what is it? It is Kirkland's signature diet green tea. Only the finest for my very reformed palate. Yeah, it's another section. Well done, folks. Another section. Cool. Now, it's going to get a little tricky, right? Luck Monkey says Costco gang. Alyssa says nasty. No, it's quite good. It's my drink of choice at the moment. Yeah, so I think we have like our core layout, right? We have a header at the top, a section, and a section. Now, this first section is going to get a little tricky. Because there's some there's some other elements inside of it, but I think this bottom section is a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and let's pick apart this bottom section. So here's the bottom section. I see something here. This news. What would news be? So folks are saying it's lagging a little bit. I'm not noticing any drop frames on my end. I would try give it a refresh. Yeah. Try a refresh for me and see if that works if you're lagging a little bit. I'm not noticing anything dropped on my end, unfortunately. So the problem right now that I'm facing is that I don't have control over the bitrate and stuff I can send to Twitch. Luckmucky, is that a setting on Twitch's end? This setting advanced low latency? Or is that on my end? Cool, yeah. So I'm seeing some folks say span or H2. Yeah, so I think I would recommend folks do that. The thing Luck Monkey just said, setting advanced low latency. I don't have control over it right now because I'm not. I haven't signed the affiliate stuff yet, or the I'm not partner, so I don't have control over it. But I think a refresh and moving to a lower quality might help a little bit if you're having trouble. Yeah, and turning the video quality down a little bit can help too. Cool. All right. So yeah, so I think news is definitely an H2 here. Sorry for the technical troubles there. I think it's an H2. And then outside the H2, we have, I see like 3 groupings here. What would those groupings be? Those 3 groupings be? What would those 3 groupings be? What could they be? Yeah, I think they could be more sections. Yep, they could be more sections. Some folks might gravitate to a div if they didn't have a more semantic choice here. But I'm going to go with sections. I think these are all grouped. They all have headings. I think to me this is a clear section. Cool. Cool. All right, let's start trying to code this. Actually, let's talk about this first section, and then we'll start coding it out. All right, here we go. We have this other top section, and when I look inside of it, I see 2 more elements. What are those 2 internal elements? What do you think they're going to be as well? If we said those bottom 3 are sections, I'm going to assume these top 2 are sections as well. And they each have their own heading, right? And so to me, like when I'm starting to think about like, is there a semantic case to be made for a section? And I see that they have headings, then yeah, I'm kind of going to start leaning towards more sections. I understand. Remember, like if we give this layout to 10 different developers, we're going to get 10 different layouts back and 10 different sets of HTML. But I'm going to try and walk you through some of the semantic reasonings I'm making here. Cool. And then we're also going to have 4 more sections here. All right, 4 more sections here for me. All right. All right. Cool. Yeah, JazzFace882 said semantically you can't have an H2 without a preceding H1. That works well for inside group headings as well. So you can have nested H2s as long as there is a H1 preceding. We're going to do a whole class on accessibility, right? So we're going to have a whole class on accessibility. We're going to break down a lot of these things. And some of the choices that we made early on when we're just trying to learn might not be the best choices when it comes to accessibility. So keep that in mind. Remember, we're going to come back and refactor a lot of our code, and we'll talk through a lot of these things when we get there. Ooh, Wolfpack said, could you use a main on the top? Possibly. I could see a main being used here. Yeah, I could see a main being replacing a section here. Cool. All right, let's code it out quickly, and then I want to move on. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a template that I have. I'm going to turn all these off, and let's get into it. All right, so we know we said header, and then we said section, and then we said section. So if I'm doing this quick, right? If I did that quick, that would be my 3 big things that we talked about. Those are big 3 things that we talked about. And inside the header, we said that we have a nav. And inside that nav, we have a UL. And inside that UL, we had LIs. And some of those LIs had anchor tags. All right. Miriam said, when it comes to accessibility, aside from being inclusive, Is there like an internet police that will take a site down if it doesn't comply? Well, right now, this is a very interesting time for accessibility. Domino's was sued. Our beloved Domino's was sued because their site was not accessible to individuals using a screen reader. Somebody that had a visual impairment was trying to order a pizza, and they could not order a pizza, so they sued. That case went all the way up to the Supreme Court. I believe the Supreme Court denied actually making a ruling, so then that means it upheld whatever the previous court said. And so now a lot of sites are open to litigation if you're not accessible, because it goes against the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So there's always going to be, when we talk about web development, like inclusive reasons and like you're a moral human being reasons, and there are going to be like greedy reasons like SEO and things like that. But now there's a really greedy reason for being compliant, is that you will be sued and can be sued. So keep that in mind. Accessibility is not only like the morally right thing to do, but it's something that can get you in a lot of hot water if you're not following it. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. Kanu actually shared that with me on Discord, that most recent Domino's case. Yeah. So remember, like we always have three types of users that we have to keep in mind. We have general users, we have assistive device users, and we have individuals when it comes to things like search engine optimization, right? So Google or Bing, folks use Bing, that are crawling our website to rank our site in the search engine results. And so if you're writing good HTML, you're going to serve your general users. If you're writing good HTML, you're going to serve a wide portion of your audience that has some sort of visual impairment or assistive device use. And then if you're doing this also right, you're going to have better results in the search engine. So you have a couple different reasons why you should do these things. I like to think of them as like moral and greedy reasons. They're both going to be something you have to think about. Yes, this code will be shared in Discord later. So don't worry about kind of frantically coding along. I'm just going to hit the highlights right now. Like I want to kind of just talk through the big things, and then I'll share my complete, like has everything complete solution in the Discord channel after class. So right now we're just going to talk through the big decisions, and then I'll share the actual completed file later on. Cool. Let me see if I can actually post that article in Twitch chat. Shout out Kanu again for sending that along. There you go. Cool. All right, so we had our header, our nav, our UL, our LIs. Inside of our section, we said we wanted to go at sections and sections. And then at the bottom, we had 3 sections as well. Cool. So that's kind of like the core layout if I'm thinking about when we look at that image, right? If we look at that image, our core layout is this header, a section with 2 sections, boom, boom, and then a bottom section with 1, 2, 3 sections in it. So if I'm talking about core layout, that's what I'm going for right there. If I was going to maybe do this in CSS as well, I would probably stop here and get this core layout on the page before coming back and adding content, just to make sure I could do it all. Cool. Let's talk about what we saw inside. Here we have an image, we have a heading, and we have a paragraph, and then probably like a span down here or an anchor tag of some sort. So if we were to go ahead and do one of those up here, we would have, let's scroll down, we would have our heading, we would have our paragraph, and we would have our span that would be in here. And then I would repeat this for all of them. And these might actually be H3s. If I think about it, these might be H3s. Cool. And then I believe that news was our H2 that we said in chat earlier. Cool. There we go. Sorry, just going back to Twitch here. And so, oh yeah, and the image as well. Yeah. Let's go ahead and do our image. Boom. Boom. And boom. There we go. We have image, H3, paragraph, and a span. If we look, we have our image, our H3, our paragraph, and our span inside of those 3 sections. Good catch, Wolfpack. Thank you. All right, so that's kind of like the basics for this bottom, right? I feel comfortable with that. Young and Fox said, how did I create and open the closed span tags? Is that a shortcut? Yeah. The cool thing is that since this is saved as an HTML file, when I just start typing the word, I hit tab and it completes. That's pretty much like the only shortcut you'll see me use when we're actually coding together. Because that's the one that's just, it's built into the text editor. I'm so used to doing it. That's kind of hard for me to not do it. Should you do it when you're first starting? I think your first 1 or 2 sites, you should hand code everything. Don't use the shortcuts. Code it out. Get used to opening and closing brackets. Get used to like using all the little keys on the keyboard that you don't use in a regular day. And then once you feel comfortable after a few sites, then go ahead and let the autocomplete take over. Biff, enjoy your nap. Cool. Is there a way to select all of a specific element so you can replace them with another? Amar, yes, there is. You can do, in Atom, it's for me, Command Shift F, and then I can find anything in this project and replace it with something else. So I could select my spans and then replace all my spans with paragraphs if I wanted to. So that's neat. It's built into most text editor, that find and replace. Alyssa said, in regards to the keyboard shortcut that Atom has, is that shortcut common for most text editors? Yes. Most text editors, whether it's VS Code, Atom, Sublime Text, once you save it as a particular file, it'll give you all those shortcuts. Can you please explain why you put a section within that section after the H2? Yes, if we're looking at this layout here, to me, this is one big section. And then each of these groupings, 1, 2, 3, is a different section. The reason why I would lean more towards a section and not so much a div is that they do all have headings. They do have grouped like content. So that's why I would kind of have them separate as well. So if we're looking at it, we have our 3 sections inside of one containing section. Ebony, I didn't go with an article here because it's not actually an article in my opinion, right? Like I don't understand everything about it. Like it's not something I could print out, hand over to you, and you'd be like, oh, that was a wonderful read. The thing it's probably going to link to will probably be an article, but this itself is not an article. Think of like a blog post. That's when I would use an article tag. Does it matter which text editor you use when working on a team? Probably not. Your work might have some peculiar things that they do where you need a specific text editor. Some jobs need a full featured IDE, which is like a really heavyweight text editor that has all these plugins and does a lot of magic for you. So depending on like what stack you use and what company you use, they might ask you to use like a more featureful text editor where you would use it. A lot of developers use Vim, VS Code, Atom. Some folks work all on Emacs. So it really is like a personal preference. It's kind of, I would say, rarer for a company to say you must use something. But I have heard of it before though. Wouldn't you say that there's 4 sections within that section on the top right? Yes. Let's get there. So if I'm looking at this, I see 2 sections. Boom, boom. And then inside this one, I see 4 sections. I could maybe be persuaded to see 4 divs there as well. But I'm going to go ahead and just say sections for now. Cool. Let's go back. We have this like top section. I'm going to have an H1 here. My H1 is going to be the welcome to the BBC. I think that's the most important thing. Like if you were going to leave with only that information that it was the BBC and they wanted to welcome you, I think that's the most important thing. We could argue on that. All right. And then we have this one section here, this internal section that has a probably like an H2, a paragraph, and a span. H2, paragraph, and a span. And like I said, don't worry about like frantically trying to kind of follow along or type along. It's just for us to kind of like talk through these decisions together. And then this right-sided section here, I'm going to go ahead and say that there are 4 sections inside of it that all have H3s, and I believe they were spans. And like I said, if somebody made a better semantic argument, I could see maybe divs for these. And that's it. So it's starting to get a little messy, right? It's starting to get a little messy. Yeah, I apologize for the lag, folks. It's definitely not on my end. I'm seeing that there's like no packets lost or anything like that. I'm going to assign the affiliate thing with Twitch. And I'm hoping when I do that, it'll give me a little bit more control over my packets and things like that. And so I think that's what I'll do, and hopefully that'll help fix it. Cool. If it's still really bad, let me see. Let me try changing some settings on my end. Sorry, 1 second. I'm just going to see if I can do anything on my end to fix it, folks. Cool. Try giving it a refresh. All right. I don't see anything frames dropping on my end. If it gets bad again, I'll stop the stream and then try to see if I can like lower bit rate and things like that, and then turn it back on. So let's try pushing through, and if it's still a video thing, we'll keep trying it. I'm gonna close some things on my end too, just in case it is. I'm gonna close that. Close the preview. All right, hopefully turning some of that stuff off makes it a little bit better. So I think most folks are having a problem. Let's see. Let me go ahead. I'm going to end the stream for 2 seconds. Don't leave. I'm just going to end the stream, and I'm going to turn it right back on once I fix the video setting. I'm going to lower my bit rate a little bit, and hopefully that works. So let me go ahead and try that real quick. So give me 1 second. I'm going to turn everything off, and then we're going to come back, and hopefully everything's still humming along. So be back in just a brief second. Hey folks, I'm back. Domino's has entered the chat. All right. I lowered my FPS. I lowered my bit rate. Hopefully that works. All right. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back. I'm alive. Let's hope this holds out. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. All right, so I think maybe we just needed a restart there. We'll try that. Hopefully that works. Slightly less FPS, but hopefully this holds out. Cool. All right, curls are looking good. Thanks, Noct. I appreciate it. Bugaboo, appreciate it. Cool. All right, let's hope this holds out. Sorry we had to do the restart here. Let's finish up this BBC solution, and we'll take it from there. I turned off my Discord for right now. I might leave that off for a few seconds. I apologize to the current boot campers. I'm going to keep Discord off for right now just to make sure that it's not eating up too much resources. I really have been trying to get this other computer set up. There's just so many little things that has been taking me a while, but we'll get it right. Sorry for the restart. All right. So kind of got through the big areas here. We had our main section with 1, 2 groupings, and then our 4 groupings for the right-hand side. The bottom we already got to. The important thing here that folks kind of had a little bit of trouble with was understanding that sometimes images can be backgrounds. Okay. All right. Sometimes images can be backgrounds. Thank you, Alyssa. Sometimes images can be backgrounds. Okay. So here, you have to ask yourself, is this image content? Right? Is that image content, or is it styling the background of that section? Are these images content, or are they styling the background? Right? And so in this case, I would say the ones I've just checked are actually styling. Just like I could paint something to have a wall of blue, right? I'm going to say those are styling. That they're actually not content. They're just there to like make the background look good. And so those images would actually go in the CSS. Those would be linked in our CSS. And so those would be background images in the CSS. So I saw a lot of folks putting the images in the HTML. I think that's totally fair. We really hadn't talked about it. But for me, those 5 would actually be done via CSS. Just like you painted on a color of the background, you can paint on an image for a background. Cool. All right. So we got through our HTML for this. Like I said, this is just like a high level overview. I just wanted to talk about the big things here. The big thing being that we had some sections inside of sections. We had some background images. Maybe realizing that when we have sections that have headings, that's going to lead us to a semantic conclusion for a section as maybe over a div. The last thing I just want to talk quickly about is the header here, and then we'll move on. So we have our header. Inside our header, we have a very clear nav. right? So some folks might say that this is just the nav, but this whole thing could technically be the nav. It's going to be at the top of every page. It's going to help you navigate around the site. So I would definitely have, if I cut this out, my normal like nav here with anchor tags inside. Ooh, let me drop my pencil here. And inside this anchor tag, let me close it. I would have an href, and that would be like news.html, and then news would be in here, right? But I could also have in my nav the image for the logo, and that image might be inside of an anchor tag. And then I might also have at the end, in my header I meant to say, I might have an image inside my header, right? If I wanted to put this image inside the nav, I would probably leave it outside of the UL. You could maybe put it in its own UL with an LI, or it could technically still be an LI inside the UL. I think those are kind of just different takes on the same thing here. It's kind of up to you how you would go about that. But I think having some influence of an image for the BBC logo, some ULI for the actual links, and then somewhere either in the nav or outside of the nav in the header, we'd have some sort of form, and that form would have an input. And that's how we get this lovely input over here. So kind of a little bit of dealer's choice there, but those are the big things I would worry about. We had a header with a nav, ULLIs in there for the main nav. We had a section below that had two different groupings in it, and then that bottom section had three sections inside of it, each with an image, a heading, a paragraph, and a span. So those are the big things. The things I saw folks doing that seemed a little off to me were, one, that you were using articles when you should be using sections. That was kind of the big trip up, and then not knowing that images could be backgrounds in the CSS. I think if you kind of think about those two things and changed up your HTML, you're probably off to a good start. So good job, everyone. Good luck. Good job with the HTML that I did see. Folks were really on point with getting through this one. So those are the big ones. Like I said, after class, I'll share the full solution that has like all the choices that I made that are well reasoned, and hopefully you can compare it to your solution. But we've been going for a little while now, so I want to keep pushing and get through the CSS review as well. All right. For the nav, do you absolutely have to have a UL for each link? So like I said, I think this might be a personal preference thing. When you go on the MDN, when they use links inside the nav, they have the structure of nav, UL, LI, anchor tag, and that does validate through the W3C validator. So that's the one I've gone with for the longest, just because it's what the MDN recommends, and I trust their recommendation for like semantically how you should structure a nav. But to say absolutely is a strong thing to say in web development, because you give this to 10 different developers, we're gonna get 10 different solutions. So I would say nav, UL, LI, anchor tag is probably pretty common. I do know that some other developers might make a slightly different choice. Bugaboo coming in with the heat. Yes. Where does CSS go? It goes in a separate file, right? Goes in a separate file. And so that separate file, we would have to link to it, right? Our HTML will have to be linked to that separate file. And once we have that separate file, we can do all of our styles in there. Cool. Yeah, never speak in absolutes when it comes to web development. Bo actually said that really nicely in chat earlier today, inside Discord. So yeah, I agree with that. Also, shout out to a lot of the folks that have been really helpful in the Discord channel. Waylid, he got promoted to a friend's helper because he's just been tearing it up in the Discord, helping so many folks with their code, doing code reviews. I really appreciate you. Thank you for giving us all your time. Bo, thank you so much for giving us all your time. All of the friends, helpers, and mentors that are in the Discord channel, I really appreciate you. I see all the work you're doing to help folks learn, and so I just want to say I really appreciate you all. Yeah. They're in there every day helping folks. Like I can't believe it. We're so lucky to have them. So I appreciate y'all. Cool. All right, let's keep pushing with the CSS. Remember, we would have to link our HTML to our CSS, and we would use a link tag to do that linking. The terminology here for folks that are just joining us, right? The terminology for folks that are just joining us is CSS. We write rules, right? So this whole thing we see at the bottom of the page is a rule. The rule is broken up to a selector and a declaration block. The declaration block is broken up into declarations, and the declarations are broken up into properties and values. Whew. Let's see what that means. So if we circle the whole thing, we're writing rules in our CSS. We write rules in our CSS so we can style the content that's in our HTML. So when we open up this page in our browser, we will see that all of our paragraphs are red and they're all bolded. Okay? So this whole rule is broken up into a selector and a declaration block. The declaration block is broken up into declarations. The declarations are broken up into properties and values. Okay, a little hard here thing to remember that a lot of folks get tripped up when they're first writing their CSS is you gotta remember to close your curly braces, and you gotta remember to use colons and semicolons to separate your properties and values and each of your declarations. If you forget any of these characters, typically the CSS that comes down below further in the cascade just won't work. So keep that in mind. If you're writing CSS and you're like, oh my God, none of my CSS is working, it's probably you forgot a semicolon or a colon or you forgot to save the file. So just keep all that in mind. For folks that are just joining us, we did have to do a restart. My apologies. If you're just joining us again, you can do !slides in the Twitch chat, and that'll give you the slides that we're using so you can follow along. And if you like all the materials that we'll be using today, you can go to our Discord. Just do !Discord in chat. That'll take you to our Discord, agree to all the rules, and you can join the follow along materials channel to get all the materials. Jazzface, no. Jazzface said, I don't want to jinx it, but the stream is doing way better. And then it just tanks. Yeah, cool. Let's keep pushing. All right, let's play our famous game. What is this? What did I just circle? Put it in Twitch chat for me, please. What did I just circle? What did I just circle? Put it in Twitch chat for me, please. Knocks so fast. Izzy, Ghost, Fred Ninja, Jess, Cookie Codes, Kickoffs. Yes, yes, everyone, it is a value. All right, let's do two more. Gonna try and trip you up here. What did I just circle? What did I just circle? Oh. I think this might be a nerd fight. I think this one might be actually a nerd fight. So I would say the nerd fight here is that if I included the curly braces, then I have selected the declaration block. But I think Alyssa and David got it right. I just circled two declarations that are inside the declaration block. Keikoff says, fight me. Yes. So I agree. I think that's two declarations that I've circled that are inside the declaration block. That was tricky. I think that's tricky. I'm willing to be wrong on that one too. And one last one. Easy. What did I just circle? Put it in Twitch chat for me, please. Got him. Nice. Wowsy, Krill, Alyssa, Youngin Fox, Red Ninja, Omar, Mayan, K-Koffs. Yes, it's a selector. It's a selector. Well done, folks. Well done. Whole thing's a rule. A rule is broken up into a selector and a declaration block. That declaration block is broken up into declarations. Declarations are broken up into properties and values. Well done. Well done. All right. Remember, our CSS is read top to bottom. The rules that are up top can be overwritten by the rules that come down below. Okay, so here we see that our paragraphs start off as red, and then as we go down the cascade, they change to blue. Okay, that means all of our paragraphs will still be bolded, right? But they will be blue. Okay, because the rule that came down below was able to override the rule that came above, and that's due to the cascade. Think of like a waterfall going down the cascade. Stuff further along has the ability to override stuff that comes above, but there is one big caveat to this cascade, and that is that things that come down below can only override things that come above when what is true. Let's see, you can get that. Boom. Alyssa with the specificity, knocked with the specificity, cross H with the specificity, look monkey with the specificity. Yes, it's specificity. The stuff that comes below can only override the stuff that comes above when it has the same or greater specificity, right? You get 1 point of specificity for a tag, 10 points for a class, 100 for an ID, and 1,000 for a couple other things that fall into this other category. So just keep that in mind. All right. Why might we want to link CSS as a separate file? I feel like I can't ask this question anymore. I asked this too much. But I want you to think about, like, one day you're going to be writing CSS and you'll be like, I have to keep it in a separate file because organization, and you're adhering to that separation of concerns. SOC. There we go. Separation of concerns. Well done, folks. All right. Let's review very quickly some simple styles that we learned in the past 2 classes, and then we're going to get our hands moving. We're going to start coding some stuff. So 3 more slides, and then you're going to start writing some code. Color. Remember, we talked about 4 different ways to do colors. The color keywords, hexadecimal value, RGBA values, HSLA values. When I say RGBA and HSLA, what does the A stand for? What does the A stand for in RGBA, HSLA? Yeah, the technical word is alpha. And that alpha is controlling the opacity, right? If it's at 1, it's fully opaque. If it's at 0 or 0.01 or something like that, then it's almost fully, well, it is fully transparent, okay? So remember, when you're writing out your HTML and your CSS and you want to start using color for your CSS, you can use color keywords like red or blue or green, but you won't have control over what shade of red, what shade of green, what shade of blue. So you're going to want to use something like a hexadecimal value, an RGBA value, and a HSLA value. And if you're new and you're just joining us, there is a plugin I like to use in Chrome called Eyedropper. So you can see it up here. I can pick a color, and when I pick a color from a web page, I go back and it'll give me the hexadecimal value. It'll give me the color keyword, the HSL, and the RGB value. So that's what I use in the browser. And then since I'm on a Mac, I have something called the digital color meter that's built into my computer. And with that digital color meter, I can just point anything on my computer and get the colors. So those are the 2 I use to pick colors on my day-to-day. Unless I'm working with a great designer. Great designers will give you the colors, the fonts, everything ahead of time, so you don't have to think about it. Font family, remember, if you wanted to change the font family, right? If you wanted to change the font family, you're gonna need that font. You can use Google Fonts to get the fonts, and then you're gonna go ahead and use a font family to say what font you want to use. You can't control the Leon value is always 100% cool. I'll take that, Ghost. I'll take that. That's a win. What is, and I've asked this before, we have Source Sans Pro, which is my favorite font, But what's Helvetica and sans serif doing here? What's Helvetica and sans serif doing there? G-Fly, yeah. G-Fly coming in, not coming in. There are fallbacks, right? There are fallbacks. There are backups. If for some reason Source Sans Pro doesn't load, maybe that link to the Google font is down. Maybe Google Fonts is down. God forbid. But maybe Google Fonts is down. So we can't load the Source Sans Pro file for that font. It's going to try Helvetica and then it's going to try sans serif. Every browser has sans serif in it. So it'll at least gracefully kind of go back to one that it can find. Cool. All right, let's keep pushing. Eric, I have not heard of that extension, but I will check it out. Font weight. So we have, once again, remember font weight is kind of controlled by that font file as well. So if you want certain levels of boldness, you're going to make sure you need to include that boldness in the font file, right? So if you're using Google Fonts, you can click the font weight you want, 300, 400, 700, and then you can use that font weight when you get to your CSS. Will all websites die if Google Fonts goes down? No, they all will hopefully have like nice fallbacks. And a lot of folks don't use Google Fonts. A lot of folks will actually host their own font files. So that way they're not relying on some third-party service. One of my favorite moments of my teaching career was I was teaching General Assembly's front-end course at night. I had a full classroom of students. And another professor, like another instructor, runs down the hallway, and we have like glass classrooms. He like runs down the hallway with like his hands on his head and like turns and looks at me through the glass, and he's like mouthing something, and I can't understand like what he's mouthing. It doesn't make sense to me. So I point to the door, and he runs in and he goes, "jQuery's down," right? The main CDN for jQuery went down. jQuery is a library that makes it easier for you to write JavaScript, or used to before vanilla JavaScript got good. Really helped with like cross-browser compatibility and all this fun stuff. But the main CDN for jQuery went down, and so many sites did not have a backup or using a local version of jQuery that all these sites just start dropping like flies. And it's something I'll never forget. And in that moment, I knew that I would never I hopefully for my static sites wouldn't have to rely on some third-party service that could go down. So yeah, it does happen. Stuff does go down. It's always big news. If you're on Hacker News, like we talked about reading earlier, you will hear all about it. Cool. All right. Remember, if you don't know what to use, you don't know what HTML tag to use, you don't know what CSS rule to write or what selector to use, MDN is the best resource. Use the MDN. It will help you. All right. I want to code some basic CSS. We'll review it together, and then we'll take a break. Okay. I know we've been live for a while. Normally I like to give a break a little bit earlier. But let's go ahead. Let's write some basic CSS, and then we'll take a break after that. So if you're using the starter code that I've given you all today, in the starter code, there is class 5 materials, and there's this basic CSS 2. It should be 3, but it's 2. If you go ahead and open that in Atom, and you open up the index.html, you'll see we have some HTML here. And then there in our CSS file are 4 comments. Those are the things I need you to work on. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to open up the basic CSS 2. You're going to open it up in Atom, and you are going to follow these instructions to start styling and make some basic styles. Okay. We're going to put like 3 minutes on the clock to give folks like 3 minutes to work through it, because it should be a little bit of review. And then we'll go over it together, and then we'll take a break. The DS store file is a hidden file on Mac OS that's created And so you can ignore it. I try to delete them when I share the code, but sometimes I forget to delete it. Cool. All right. Let's go ahead. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock. Open up the files. If you're new and need the files, do bang or exclamation point Discord in the chat, and you can join our Discord channel. Agree to all the rules. You'll get access to the follow along materials, and you'll be able to follow along like we're doing now. So I'm going to open up a clock. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the board. Gonna play our chill hop. There we go. And have at it, folks. 3 minutes to work through these. Hopefully you already started. While all of you are working, if you have questions, go ahead and ask questions. Is the music okay? Is it too loud? Should I turn it down, turn it up? For those that are new and following along, go ahead and follow along. Kind of loud. Let me turn it down just a little bit. There you go. I turned it down a little bit. While folks are working, if you have questions, feel free to throw questions in Twitch chat and I'll go ahead and answer them. Salav DM'd me on Discord. You can't find the files. Once you join the Discord, you have to agree to the rules. Once you agree to the rules, you'll get access to all the channels on Discord. And one of those channels is the Follow Along Materials channel. That Follow Along Materials channel will have the stuff we're talking about. Alright, Eric, I'll check it out. Done, very ugly. Yeah, if you finish, go ahead and put finish in the chat. I want to see who finishes it in the first couple few. Alyssa came in quick. Boom, Knox finished. Izzy finished. Whales Eat Krill finished. Maya finished. Code Guy finished. Tuchini finished. Welcome. Good job, good job, good job. K-Doge opened wrong folder. Omar with the finish. Nice. Boom. All right, folks. Let's go over this together. Well done. I'm going to turn off the music. There we go. All right. It's all right, Ghost. Alpine thinks he got it. Ebony came with the finish. Nice. All right. Please make the anchor tags gold, 20 pixels, and have a purple background. All right. So we have some anchor tags. Okay. Let's go ahead and create a rule for the anchor tags. Remember, anchor tags are just A. Let's make them color gold. It's a little bit bigger for folks to see. All right. A little bit bigger. All right. Color gold. We're going to do font size, 20 pixels. Have a purple background. So background, purple. I think that was pretty straightforward. All right, let's make this section have a height of 200 pixels. So height, 200 px. A 10-inch thick border. So we're going to use our border shortcut. Border, 10 pixels, solid blue. and a light orange background. So we'll do background. How did you get light orange? What did you all do for light orange? Oh, Alyssa, just ahead of the game. Nice. RGBA. Thank you. I'm just going to copy that from chat. 250, 190, and sorry, I'm looking at Twitch chat to grab this and it's moving. 88, and we'll use 1 for our opacity. Cool. Let's save these and make sure they're both working. It should look ugly as sin, but hey, look, it's working. Gold, purple, we got the thick blue, light orange background. Thank you for the RGBA value. Cool. Let's go back to the CSS here. I think that's all those. All right, please make the aside have a height of 300 pixels. So let's do aside height 300 px. Thin red border, so we'll do our border again. Border, let's do thin, so 2 pixels, solid red. And background, what did y'all do for background of teal? I know teal is a color keyword. I'll use the color keyword for now. Yeah, that looks good. And then the last one here. Please make the aside paragraph. So I'm going to do aside space P. So I'm saying the paragraphs inside the aside. I want them to be color. We'll do color white. Font size of 18 px, and an underline of red. How did you all do the underline of red? I'm curious how folks did that. Anybody figure out how to do it? Ooh. Text decoration underline, and then text decoration color of red. Interesting. I thought of something else. Let's try this. I think the whole chat went the text decoration route. Let me do this. Border bottom 2 pixels solid red, and then let's go ahead and open that in the browser. So it has like that red underline, but it's for the whole thing. I thought I'd be kind of clutching it there. So that was one way to go about it. You could also put a width on it, and then it would stop where the text stops. But that's a different way I thought about it. But I like the text decoration red with the underline of red. Yeah, I like that. That's good. And I think you all came up with like a shortcut too. Let's try the shortcut. Underline red. That works. Let's see. There we go. Another way of doing it. Sorry, it's really hard to see on the small screen. The text decoration underline, though, the interesting thing is if you do it with the underline, you might not have as much control over it when it comes to like padding and stuff like that. But for now, it looks pretty damn good. Well done, everybody. Well done. Y'all coming out the woodwork with some good stuff. I love it. All right, let's keep pushing. All right, so I promised once we got through it, I'll share, of course, always share the code. Let me put it back up on the screen. We got through it. That was a quick one. I want everyone to have a break. We've been going hard for almost an hour and a half plus. So let's go ahead and take a 3-minute break. When we come back, I'll answer questions and stuff like that. So go ahead. Let's take a 3-minute break. Please get up. Please move around. Please go grab some water. Do what you got to do. And be back here in 3 minutes. Stretch your legs. We're here for 3 hours, so stretch your legs, get moving. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer. I'm going to put on some music. See y'all in 3 minutes. If you have questions while we take a break, go ahead and ask the questions. I'm going to stand up and stretch real quick, and then I'll answer questions. Man, did you all hear that crack? That crack was wild. Let's go here. All right, I hope you're getting your water, you're getting your stretch in. Remember, happy dev, happy dev. Kevin just found your stream, good stuff. Hey, I appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks for stopping by. Eric M loves how engaged the chat is. Pretty cool community. Yeah, we're blessed. We got some really great folks that stop by every stream. In our Discord community too. If you're looking to learn how to code, go ahead and do !Discord and chat. Join our Discord, agree to the rules, you get access to all the channels. We have some amazing friends and mentors that are in that channel helping people every day. Good vibes, everybody, good vibes. Go ahead and grab your water, do what you gotta do. Can you go down so I can see the aside paragraph one more time? Absolutely. And I'll post, of course, all the solutions in Discord after class as well. Oh, well said, lull the baby and sleep to sleep in 3-minute challenge accepted. Wishing you a very successful attempt. I agree. All the helpers are superheroes. They've, because you got to realize it's after work too. Like that's why I respect everyone that's here, right? Everyone here has my utmost respect. You put in a whole day, no matter what you're doing, you put in a whole day, and then late at night you're putting in more time to better yourself and learn things and take time to get your brain going. That's mad respect. And all the mentors that do the same thing, but to help folks, I appreciate you all. Good stuff. The Code Planner said, can you share more about the full stack clash you'll be sharing soon? Yeah, so the idea here is I've had a lot of fun doing this smaller, just an exploration. It was originally for folks that were laid off from the pandemic or had been affected by the pandemic in some way. I really like using kind of like education as a form of activism, and so I was happy to kind of start all that. I've enjoyed it. I think we've built a pretty good community. We have 500 plus people in Discord. We have 100 plus people that are here for the stream. I think since we have such a good community, it'd be a waste to not keep pushing. And so I've been working on a full stack course that'll go longer, more than just the 5 weeks. And so I'll share more about that soon. I'll always share it first on Twitter and Discord. So if you're not following me on Twitter, just leonnoel.com/Twitter. You can do that, and make sure you're in the Discord too. All right, welcome back, folks. Welcome back. Recently bought a standing desk, work from home all day. Yeah, I have a standing desk right now. I love it. My ergonomic setup is really important to me. I don't think you can see it on screen, it's too small, but I have a bone spur like in my hand from typing so much. So I use a really fancy keyboard. I have a Kinesis Advantage 2. I don't use a real mouse. I use like a rollerball mouse. My ergonomics are maxed, and the standing desk is really helpful because I'll switch throughout the day. Sometimes when I'm in heavy focus mode, I have to be sitting. For some reason, I have to be sitting to focus really hardcore. And then when I'm doing like lighter tasks, I'll stand up. It's been really beneficial. Me too, Alyssa. I stood up. Both my legs cracked. It was wild. Cool. All right, folks. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hope you got your water. Hope you hope well. I hope you were successful in lulling the baby to sleep. I hope that went well. Twitter handle is Leon Noel. I'll put it in Twitch chat. Boom. There you go. Give me a follow on Twitter if you want to hear about stuff first. Typically like to share there, and then I'll always share in Discord too. Cake-offs threw themselves at the yoga mat. I love it. Yeah, there's been a lot of unfortunate things. Like if you sit too long, that restricts the blood flow. Some pretty nasty things can happen. So make sure you're getting up, make sure you're moving, make sure you're stretching, make sure you're staying hydrated. Yeah, I don't know if I can get it on stream. Let me see if I can put it on stream, my keyboard real quick. As folks come back, I don't want to ruin anything. There we go. Close. There we go. That's my keyboard. So it has like a dish and it's separated, so that my hands can sit more naturally and I don't get as much carpal tunnel like symptoms. Cool. Thanks for the follow. All right, let's keep pushing, folks. Let's get back to it. I lost my mouse because I moved it and I looked down and I couldn't find it. So we're back. All right, got my mouse now. All right, so we talked about relationships before. I want to review those relationships. They're important. We're going to do some practice with the relationships, and then we're going to keep pushing. So when you are selecting elements to style, there are a couple ways you can select stuff. Thank you. Music gone. There are a couple ways you can select things. You can select, like we've been doing, like singular elements, but there are often these parent, child, or relationship selectors that we're going to use, right? These relationship selectors that we're going to use to start being a little bit more specific with the tags that we want. Maybe I want the paragraphs that are inside of a section and not the paragraphs that are inside of an article, right? And so this is where we can start getting into these relationships. The two biggest relationships are the right caret and the space. Whenever you see a right caret, you're looking for a direct child, right? So in this case, I'm saying find me a paragraph that is directly inside of the section, right? A paragraph that's directly inside the section. And if we go ahead and look, you can see paragraph directly inside the section. So this is helpful when you want that first child, that direct child, you use that right caret. Sometimes you don't care about how deeply nested the elements are that you want. So in this case, we're doing section space P. That means find me any paragraph, no matter how deep it is inside the section. Find me any paragraph deep inside that section and go ahead and style it red, right? If I go ahead and do this, put that right caret in there, this selector would no longer work. This article is in the way, right? That makes the paragraph a grandchild of the section, not a child. Like the article is the child of the section and the paragraph is the child of the article. So grandchild versus child. So if you want something that's immediately like one level down, you use the right caret. If you want something that's any level down, you can use the space. So whenever you see a space, you're saying something inside of something. And there's one other relationship that's important, and that's siblings. Siblings are elements that are on the same level. And in this case, you can say target hello YouTube by doing P plus P. That would get you the second paragraph. The paragraph whose immediate sibling was a paragraph. So those are the three big relationships that are important that you'll see pop up a lot. And so let's go ahead and practice those relationships. In the starter code, there is some starter code for practicing these relationships. I'm going to go ahead and open that starter code. It's relationship CSS2. Go ahead and open that folder in your text editor. There is a bunch of HTML here. And then inside the CSS, there's some style.css. And there are some things that I'm going to ask you to do. You're going to use nested selectors here. No classes, no IDs. You're going to use all nested selectors. Kkoff says, if there is a third P element that you wanted to select, could you use P plus P plus P? Absolutely. You can go as many of them deep as you would like. All right. Go ahead. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock. And go ahead and start working on this. I'm going to bring back the music. Take 3 minutes. If you finish, put finish in the chat. If you have questions, go ahead and ask questions in the chat while people are working. Remember, no classes, no IDs. Try and get these three things to style. If you finish within the 3 minutes, go ahead and put finish in the chat. If you're new and just following along, you can do exclamation point slides in Twitch chat to get access to the slides. And if you want the starter materials, the code that we're working on right now, go ahead and just do exclamation point Discord in Twitch chat. And what will happen is you can join our Discord, make sure you agree to all the rules, and you can get the follow along materials in the follow along channel. Dig deep, folks. 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left. Exertion Gaming said, how many elements deep before you just add a class instead of doing P plus P plus P plus P? I like to use my classes as like on the containing elements. If I knew if my selectors are getting wild and I'm adding way too many, that's a really good time to also start using a class too. So yeah, I think your Exertion Gaming, I think you're hitting it nail on the head there. Like if your selectors are getting too unruly, that's when it's time to start using a class already. The HTML is wrong. Oh no. Where? Which one? Ooh, good catch. Ooh, I didn't realize that last one. Good eyes. Yeah, that last anchor tag is not closed, folks. That last anchor tag is not closed. 1,000 Leon points to last avatar. Let me bring back up the clock. This one was a little bit more difficult, huh? "30 seconds left. 30 seconds left." Don't worry if you're not finishing. I know these are really aggressive timelines, and so don't worry if you're not finishing them in the 3 minutes. Just enough to get your fingers going, and then we go over it together. So don't feel any pressure if you're not hitting it within 3 minutes. Ghost, I'm 1,000 points behind last avatar. Listen says I'm kind of done. Izzy says I'm done. Nice. We had a few folks get in right at the buzzer. All right, folks. Let's go over this together. Please make only "just kidding" yellow. So let's go ahead and take a look at "just kidding." Just kidding is an H2, but there are other H2s, right? We have some other H2s here, like in the article. So we have to be a little bit more specific. Are there any other sections? No. So if I want "just kidding," I can select an H2 that's inside of the section. So that's what I'll do. I'll do section, H2, and I'll do color, yellow. Cool. Let's make sure that works. I'm going to open this in the browser. Yeah, so "just kidding" is yellow. Nothing else is yellow. So that looks like it worked. Let me turn off the music. Cool. Let's go back. Somebody said, what did I do to fix my HTML? I forgot this little closing anchor tag there. So go ahead and close that anchor tag. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next prompt here. Please make only Twitter red and 20 pixels. So Twitter is an anchor tag here. Cool, it's an anchor tag. And that anchor tag is inside of a paragraph. There's another anchor tag inside of a paragraph, so that's not specific enough. But this one is inside of an aside. So I can do a side anchor tag, and that would work. If I want to be a little bit more specific, I could do a side paragraph anchor tag. Right, so a side A would work. If I want to be a little bit more specific, I could do a side paragraph A. So a side PA. That's a little bit more specific. I could get away with just like that, right? Both would work. Cool. So let's go ahead and do color red and font size 20 px. Let's make sure it works. All right, Twitter's red and nothing else is red, so we know we're good. All right. Please make really hot purple and like wild hot larger and blue. So let's go ahead and take a look. Really hot's an H2, and like wild hot is also an H2. So I can't just target the H2. I can't just target the H2 because they're both H2s. Do we have other H2s? We do have other H2s. So we have H2s here that are inside the section. So I have to at least start with article to target both the H2s. Yeah, Kickoff's got what I would do. I think in this scenario, I'm going to do article H2. And then I'm going to do article H2 plus H2 to make like wild and hot different. So I'm going to go ahead and do, oh, sorry, what did I say? Article, yeah. Article H2. Article H2. And I'm going to go ahead and make that color purple. Cool. And so now that would make both the H2s. Like if we save right now and we go and look, and we refresh, really hot and like wild hot are both purple. So what I need to do now is I need to use the cascade to my advantage, right? If I use the cascade to my advantage, I can then go ahead and say, all right, article H2 plus H2. So give me that second H2 and let's go ahead and make it font size. It says bigger, so I'm just going to do something bigger. I know it's bigger, 30 pixels. And let's do color blue. All right. So now if this all works, we should see the second one being bigger and bluer. Blue, not bluer, I guess. All right, there we go. So that worked. So I used the cascade to my advantage here, right? That's an important trick to know that, all right, I made both of them purple here. And then as I went down, I made the specific one blue and bigger. Cool. All right. Yeah, the comments in the CSS I think are a lot easier. That's how we'll do it going forward. All right, please make only Bob and pizza green. All right, let's take a look at it. Where's Bob and pizza? All right, Bob and pizza are up here. All right, so we have two lists. We have one list here and one list here. I can't just do anchor tags because there are other anchor tags. I can't just do li anchor tag because there are two sets of li anchor tags. So we have to use the sibling here. Look at y'all in chat. Yeah, we got to use a sibling here. So if we go ahead and do ul plus ul space a. So it's going to give me any anchor tag that's in that second ul, right? So let's go ahead and do color green. And there we go. Bob and pizza are green. The sunshine and rainbow are not green. My apologies. I used red and green here. Going forward, I won't use those colors. I do know some folks may be colorblind, so I apologize for making these red and green. I was kind of working on this quickly, but I'll revise it so that the next run it's not red and green colors. Cool. So I was able to do that. Did anybody figure this? Did anybody get this last one? Did anybody get that on their own? Just forgot the A. I see. Cool. All right, folks. Let's keep pushing. I know we're at 8:30 EST, so we only got about like an hour left, and there's a lot of stuff I want to cover. I really wanted to do this for review day, though. I just felt like some folks need a little bit more practice to see a few more different things in a different way, and so let's keep pushing. Once again, all this information will be shared on Discord. You'll be able to come pick it back up. All right. IDs and classes. Let's review them pretty quickly. IDs enable you to target one element and only one element directly, right? So if I want to go ahead and target, say, hello YouTube, it has the ID of zebra. So it enables me to target just that paragraph and only that paragraph, right? Nothing else on the document can have the ID zebra, and that paragraph cannot have another ID. It is a unique identifier, okay? Meaning that it cannot be reused anywhere else. Classes are a little bit different. Classes can be reused. and each element can have multiple classes. You can think about classes as being styles that you want to apply to multiple elements. So here I have two paragraphs that have the class of Bob, right? Our first one here has the class of Bob, another one has a class of Bob. Both of those paragraphs, since they have the class of Bob, will now be colored red. Okay. You can think about classes like you run into in normal day-to-day. Right now I have class, I guess it's called a Henley. Class Henley, I have class glasses, I have class fabulous hair, right? So these are the classes that make up Leon. And I have one ID. I can think of like my ID, maybe like being like my social security number, right? So like that's unique to me. I only have one. Hopefully nobody else has that one as well, but I have multiple classes that make up me right now. So IDs are unique. Classes can be reused multiple times, and each element can have multiple classes. The reason we have classes is so we can add multiple styles to different elements and have them separated by class. All right. Specificity. When you have classes and IDs and we're worried about the cascade, remember, in the cascade, things that come above can be overwritten by things that come below if the thing below has greater or equal specificity. Right? Has greater or equal than specificity. So here we have a selection of HTML and I have a CSS rule. How many points of specificity does this selector have? How many points of specificity does this selector have? Go ahead and throw it in chat. Texas, welcome. Glad to have you. Yeah, 110. Well done, right? We get 10 points for Jumanji original movie, which is the best Jumanji movie. And then pizza, which is an ID. So if we were to follow our chart up top, we have 0 points for tags, 10 points for classes, and 100 points for the ID. So that's 110 points. Cool. There's one other thing that I want to talk about here. What is this called? How did I write this class name? This has a specific name. The way I wrote this class name is a specific name. Camel case. Yeah, it's called camel case. There are many different ways of doing casing. Camel casing says the first word should be lowercase and every other word should be capitalized. Now, different teams are going to use different types of casing. I use camel casing throughout my HTML, my CSS, and JavaScript, so I don't have to think about it. You don't have to use camel casing. Just whatever you use, stick to it. Some teams will use hyphens. Some people will use underscores. I think camel case is the easiest for folks starting out, and you can use it across all three. So that's why I recommend it. So this rule right here would be making it red. It would be making the paragraph that's in the section red. In this case, there might theoretically be multiple paragraphs that have the Jumanji original movie, and this would select only the things that have Jumanji original movie inside of pizza. So this is kind of like hypothetical. I didn't mean to be like a real example. It's just really just for us to play the specificity game. Cool. How many points of specificity does this selector have? Go ahead and put it in chat. How many points of specificity does that selector have? Go ahead and put it in chat. Man, this one took people a few seconds. People had to pull out the calculators for this one. Well done. Brev, Ambi, Look Monk, Knock, Kickhouse, Maya, Alyssa Cross, everybody coming in with it. Nice. Let's go ahead and count it up. We have 10 points for Bob, 10 points for Domino's Pizza because they're both classes, 1 point for the paragraph, and 100 points for the ID. So that brings our grand total to 121 points of specificity. 1 tag, 2 classes, 1 ID. All right, one more. Alrighty, here we go. How many points of specificity does this rule have? Spongeman373 said, can you please go over why the periods are in the selector? Periods are the character that denotes a class. So the period is how you know you're dealing with a class and not a tag. And the octothorpe, or some people call it the hashtag, that's how you denote that it's an ID. Oh, people want big brained on this one. Now I said rule, I didn't say selector. I said rule. Yeah, that's a key terminology here, because we get 100 points for the ID, another 100 points for another ID, and then 1,000 points for that bang important. Now this is a weird selector in general. You would never do like 2 IDs because the ID is a unique identifier already. It's very rare that you need to use multiple to maybe hit some sort of specificity bump, but it was just a test to see how we were doing. Yeah, so 1,200 total. Well done, folks. Well done. All right. We have another set of practice problems. So go ahead and open up the specificity practice for me. In the starter code from today, there is a specificity practice. Let's go ahead and open up the specificity practice, please. And this one has those weird questions in it, right? It has those weird questions. How be as specific as possible. So we have some HTML, we have some CSS, and the questions are in the CSS. I'm going to go ahead and put 3 minutes on the clock. And this is a hard 3 minutes. This is a hard 3 minutes. If you finish within the 3 minutes, go ahead and put finished in the chat. Go ahead and get it open up in your text editor of choice. And I'm going to go ahead and start the music. I'm going to start the timer. Have at it. If you have questions while you're working, go ahead and throw those questions in chat. I'm happy to answer them. Last Avatar said, do the browsers actually calculate with these numbers? Yes. If you're trying to calculate if a rule can override another rule in the cascade, it comes down to these numbers. If it doesn't have the same or greater level of specificity, it cannot override in the cascade. How do you select multiple classes in CSS? You don't put any space, so it'd just be .class1, .class2, no space. If you put a space, you're saying find class 2 that's inside of class 1. So if you want multiple classes, just no spaces. Hookich, if you do !Discord in our chat, you can join our Discord, just agree to all the rules, and then once you agree to all the rules, it will open up all the channels for you. There is a follow along materials channel. If you go to that channel, you get all the starter code. So just go ahead and download it through there. Folks that are new, welcome. If you want to follow along with the slides, it's !slides to get access to the live slides. And then it is !Discord to get access to our Discord. Agree to all the rules, get the files, and the follow along. Eric said, if you put plus H2 again, as in H2 plus H2 plus H2, does it target the third? Yes, it will target the third H2. So if you did H2 plus H2 plus H2, you would get the third H2 that was a sibling. But it's also going to be every third sibling. So if you had 4 H2s, it would actually grab the last 2, because both of the last 2 both had 2 other H2s before it, which I know is really weird. Hokich, there's the slides for you. Welcome, welcome. All right, 40 seconds left. If you're new, go ahead and give us a follow, just so more folks can see the free bootcamp that we're doing right now. Chow's Knight said, Rugrats Wild Thornberry's crossover was amazing. I agree. Best crossover all time. Miriam said, are you aware your last name is the reverse of your first name? Yes. I used to always like pretend that I didn't know this was true and play with people. But yes, that is correct. My grandmother is a very clever person. All right. I know that was a hard 3 minutes. Let's go ahead and take a look at it together. All right. Please make this is an ad blue, but make sure it is specific enough that you could add another H3 somewhere else in the document. All right. Redbird asked, so if you're only changing individual parts of the HTML, you should always use IDs. This is actually like a highly contested issue, I would say. Some developers never use IDs. They find them to be too specific, and they save IDs for like hooks for their JavaScript later on. Some folks have no problems using IDs. I myself tend to use classes way more than I use IDs, and I do use my IDs very sparingly. And that's just due to the specificity, the cascade, right? If I'm using IDs everywhere, it's gonna be harder to override stuff. So that's kind of my logic behind it. But it's a very hot topic. All right, so let's find this is an ad and see what it looks like. Where did I put it? All right, here we go. This is an ad. You're beautiful. It's an H3. It's inside of this aside. So I guess that's my first thing of specificity I can do is I can say, all right, the H3s that are inside of this aside, specify them, make that specific. And then if I add H3s elsewhere, it won't affect them. So I'm going to grab this class, extra, read all about it. And I'm going to use that as my parent element and then put H3 inside of it. So I'm going to go ahead and do dot. Remember, the dot lets us know it's a class. Extra, read all about it, H3. And I'm going to make it color blue. So that should make only that H3 blue. And the music is still loud. I apologize. There you go. All right. So that H3 is now blue. Let's go ahead and open this in the browser just to make sure. Yeah, this is an ad. You are beautiful is the only thing that's blue. And I think that gives us a little bit of a cushion, right? This gives us a little bit of a cushion so that if we add H3s anywhere else, it only target that H3. Cool. I really like that. Well done. All right, let's look at the next one. Please make I like turtles. That's one of my favorite videos on the internet. I like turtles. Make it red. All right, so let's go ahead and look for I like turtles. It's this H2. The closest thing that we can do to make it specific, right? To make it specific is that we can do ID chunky milk as the parent and then do space H2 to grab I like turtles. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this real quick, chunky milk. And let's go ahead and do Octothorpe, hashtag, to denote that it's an ID. And then inside of that, we're going to have our H2. And we're going to make it color red. Cool. So we made I like turtles red. Let's double check. H2 inside of chunky milk looks good. Let's go ahead, open it in the browser. Yeah, and I like turtles, the only thing that's red, and it's kind of specific enough that it should help us going down the line. All right, let's keep pushing. Let's go ahead and do the next two. These are the tricky ones, the be as specific as possible. And I'm sure we could be here for a very long time trying to get really, really specific. So let's go ahead and figure it out. Is carrot usage not recommended or is it personal choice? Kind of personal choice. I guess like you should be specific enough, and sometimes some folks value more specificity and a little bit more rigidity in their CSS, but it's kind of personal preference. Different teams might have different options, or different preferences, I should say. All right, folks are already filling up chat with the most specific one here. Let's go and take a peek. Hello world. So let's see where hello world is, and let's see if we can start picking everything out. All right, so as deep as we can go, hello world does not have any siblings, so we can't use a sibling selector. The parent is a section that has the idea of Rugrats Wild Thornberry's best crossover all time. Don't at me, it is the best crossover of all time. I actually watched it this weekend. My nieces were here. We did a movie night, and that's the movie we chose. Also, Rugrats in Paris, dope movie. Watch that first. Hello World has no siblings, so we'll go up to section ID Wild Thornberry best crossover all time. That is a sibling. It's a sibling of the header, and that header has a class of top, so we can use both of those as a sibling, and then they're in the body, and then they are inside the HTML element. So we could also do bang important. Oh, Brev, I almost forgot about that too. All right, so let's get super specific here. I'm gonna have to swap back and forth, and all right. Hello world. So it's an H2. I'm gonna copy this ID real quick, and it's a section. Oh, this is so dumb. Don't ever do this in real life, please. This is for entertainment purposes only right here. It was also a section that had that ID, right? So I think that's like as specific as we can get to the H2. This section was the sibling of a header that had the class top. So header dot top, and their sibling, so we used a sibling selector, and then header with the class of top is a child of the body and the HTML element. There we go. Let's see if this works. Let's make it, what do we have? We have blue, red. Let's make it purple. Color, purple. All right, let's save it. Fingers crossed. Refresh. First try. Nice. Hello world is purple, and it's way over specific. Don't ever do this in the real life. But it's a fun exercise, right? To figure out how specific we can get. Let's go back and take a peek at it so folks can see. Can anybody think of anything else we can do to add to the specificity here? I think this is pretty close. I think this is the most I can get out of it. H2, section with the ID, header with the top, body HTML. Alyssa says, I'll just stick to ID H2. Yes, I agree. I think you should stick to that in the real world. Oh, Izzy, right. And somebody reminded me too before. I forgot bang important. Of course. Let's get an extra 1,000 points of specificity. Boom. There we go. Now that's the most specific. That's really cool. All right. Let's get down to business to defeat. Mm-hmm. All right, let's get down to business. All right, let's get down to business. All right, this one's gonna be a little bit more tricky. So there is a paragraph here that has a class of turtles and past the remote. It is a paragraph. It has a sibling of an H2 that is the section that has an ID. That's the sibling of a section that has an ID. That's the sibling of a header that has a class that's inside the body that's inside the HTML element. Jazzface says, you wanted specificity, you got specificity. And they went to town. Fox said, what if we do bang important twice? You break the internet. That's what happens. A black hole opens up and everything gets swallowed in. If you're watching this, please don't do this. This is just for fun, entertainment purposes. There's going to be somebody in the YouTube comments. You shouldn't do this. It's too specific. All right. Let's start with, we can grab this. We already know that we need this stuff right here. All right. So HTML body header top section with the ID. I think that gets us to here. Space. Oh no, sibling section chunky milk. Can't forget the chunky milk. Plus section chunky milk. All right, man, I needed a whole new line. That's great. So now we're inside that section. We can do an H2 as a sibling to the paragraph. So we'll do space H2 plus paragraph. And then that paragraph had two classes. I think the class was pass the remote. Yep. And I forget what the other class was. The other class was turtles. Cool. I think that's pretty specific. And let's make it a different color. Gold. Oh, and don't forget bang important. Cool. I think that looks pretty solid. Am I missing anything? Let's make sure it works. I'm really proud of myself. First try. Nice. I'm really happy with that one. I think that's pretty. I don't think I can get it more specific than that one. Anybody have anything else they could add? It works. So we have, let's read this back. We have a paragraph that has a class of pass the remote and the class of turtles. That is a sibling of an H2 that is inside of a section that has the idea of chunky milk. That's a sibling of a section that has the idea of Rugrats, Wild Thornberry, best crossover all time, which is a sibling of a header that has the class top, which is a child of the body, which is a child of the HTML element. Boom. Podiman87 said, simple question, I wasn't here before. What does important do? Important increases the specificity of an element by 1,000 points. Basically, when you start writing your CSS, the stuff that comes above can be overwritten by the stuff that comes below only if it has the same or greater specificity. So that's where all this funky specificity comes into play. All right, well done, everybody. This was really fun. This should be like an international competition to like you get an HTML file and like how fast can you find the most. Like I would totally do a specificity race. I'd be down. So nap time for your brain after that one? Yeah. All right. Naps are for the week tonight. Not tonight. We got too much stuff to do tonight, folks. Naps are not for the week. I love naps. Strike that. All right. Box model. No, Cookie says, I can't wait to do this in my first interview. Please don't. Unless they really want to nerd out over specificity, then yeah. All right. Box model. Box model is one of the most important concepts when you're first learning web development. It's kind of tricky. It's kind of confusing. So we're going to draw it out again. We're going to blame the nuns. If you don't know what that means, go watch the older videos for my poor drawing habits. But when you think about an element has a height and width. Either you give it a height and width or it gets a height and width based on the content inside of it. You can add padding. Padding increases the distance between the element and its border. And then you can push around this box model the border padding in the element with margin. You add margin top, it can push it down. You put margin left, it can push it to the right. So that makes up the box model. Let's go ahead and draw out a box model real quick. I'm going to open up a whiteboard. We're just going to do this real quick, and then we're going to actually do some practice problems. All right, so I'm going to draw out a box. Boom. That is a box. I'm going to give it some padding, right? So I'm going to go ahead and give it some padding. And that we're going to give it 20 pixels of padding on the right. So that's 20 pixels of padding on the right. The element itself is 100 pixels wide. So it's 100 pixels wide. We have 20 pixels of padding. And then I'm going to go ahead and give it a border That's 3 pixels solid. So here's my element. It's 100 pixels wide. It has 20 pixels of padding, and it has a 2 pixel solid border on each side. What is the total width of this element according to a box model? Did I say 3 pixels at first? I think I said 3 pixels at first. So let's just stick with 3. Cool. So in this case, I messed everybody up. So we'll say 2 or 3. So in this case, we're going to have, if it's 2 pixels, we'll have 2 pixels here. We'll have 100 for the width. We'll have 20 for the padding and 2 pixels for it again. So that would be 124. If it was 3 pixels, we'd have 3 pixels on the side, 100, 20, and 3 for 126. Okay. So depending on how thick your border is, those would be the 2 widths. And this becomes important if you want to sit content next to other content. If we threw this into a 400 pixel container, how many of these could fit inside of that 400 pixel container? How many could fit inside of a 400 pixel container? Let's say they're 124 times 3. 2 carry the 1 would be 7. 372. We could fit 3, right? Because at 3, we're at 372. If we tried to put one more next to it, it couldn't fit inside that 400 pixel container. It would break to a new line, right? It would just break to a new line. Okay, Doge said, hey, what's the difference between margin and padding? Padding increases the distance between the element and its border. Margin pushes the whole thing around. It's the bully, pushes it around. Cool. All right, enough of my bad drawing. Let's leave this and let's go ahead and work on the box model code. So in the starter code, I'm going to close this one. In the starter code, there is a box model practice. Lots of practice tonight, folks. Box model practice. Let's go ahead and open the box model practice in Atom. Go ahead and open up your HTML. Go ahead and open up your CSS. And there are some rules here. Oh no, did I do the same thing? Oh, okay. Okay, so for this, I accidentally kept rules in the CSS. Delete those. I don't care about the stuff in the CSS. Delete the stuff that's in the CSS. That should be an empty file. No content in the CSS. In the HTML, there is a list down here of the things I want you to do. Please make the H1 30 pixels, a little padding, and a thin red border. All right. Then make the H2 25 pixels, padding, top and bottom, thick gold border. So go ahead and work on these, please. I'm going to go ahead and put, let's go ahead and put 4 minutes on the timer for right now, because we're at 9 o'clock. I wanna get to kind of wrapping things up within the half hour. So I'm gonna put 4 minutes on the timer. Whoop. 4 minutes on the timer. Go ahead and start working through those questions there in the HTML. You're of course going to solve it in the CSS. 4 minutes. Going to put on some tunes. Go ahead and do it. Oh yeah, I had an extra S here in the span. Go ahead and get rid of that extra S. First run, folks. Thank you for helping me find the bugs. There you go. On timer. Ziggy, you the man? No, Ziggy, you the man or woman. Appreciate y'all being here. If you have questions while you work on stuff, go ahead and throw them in chat. If you're new and want to follow along, you can do exclamation point slides in the chat. right? Exclamation point slides in the chat. That'll make it so you can download the slides or follow along with the live slides. And then if you want the materials, like all this lovely starter code that we have here, go ahead and do exclamation point Discord in the chat, and then it'll take you to our Discord channel. If you go ahead and you sign up, you follow all the rules, it'll open up all the other channels, and there's a lovely follow along materials channel where you can get all the starter code for today that we're working through. Ebony King says you have a radio voice like those slow jam radio VJs. Man, I wish. I appreciate it though. It's a good compliment. All right, folks. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Ghost says you should invite Joe Rogan into this podcast. When I say size, do I mean the text? I'll let you be the dealer's choice. Whatever that means to you, go ahead and do that. When I'm with the H1 for 30 pixels, that's font size. Go ahead and make the font size 30 pixels. Yeah, H1 and H2, that's font size. Ziggy, I am using a Blue Yeti Procaster mic. It's the black one. The Procaster came with like the shock mount and the stand. But it's just a nice USB mic that I have the gain real low. I sit real close. I'm getting ready to move in a couple weeks, and then when I'm done moving, I'm going to redo my whole setup, and I'll post like a setup video for folks that are interested. The section should be centered. Yeah, like put it in the middle of the page, the section, not the text. Minute left, folks. Minute left. If you're new and you haven't followed, go ahead and give a follow. That way we show up on Twitch chat and more folks see us and more folks can join the fun. Oh, Jas came in with the done. That was the first done. Well done, well done, well done. If you're finished, go ahead and put finished in the chat. This one was hard. This one should have been like a 8-minute. Good stuff, folks. Finish strong, finish strong. Dig deep. You got it in you. Oh, mine with the finish. Knocked with the finish. Luck Monkey with the finish. Well done. Wolfpack with the finish. I love it. Alyssa coming in at the nail-biting pace. Well done, well done. Woo! And the buzzer beater. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at this together. And don't worry, like I said, this should have been way more time. So if you got it done within the 4, kudos. But if you're new to this, don't worry about going too fast. It'll come with time. All right, I had a small error with one of my spans, had an S, so I'm just going to save that. All right. The L1 says... The L1 says, please make the H1 30 pixels, a little padding on the left, and a thin red border. So let's go ahead and do 30 pixels. H1. Whoop. Let's do font size, 30 pixels. And then I know I said a thin red border. So border, let's do like 2 pixels solid red. And let me save it real quick just so we can see, because this is prior to us putting padding on the left. So if I open this in the browser, you'll see that the text, like, let me make this bigger so we can see. See how the text is up against the border, right? See how that text is up against the border? What the padding is going to do is that padding is going to increase the distance between the element and the border. So we're going to see it kind of move away from that border. So let's go ahead and clear that. Let's go back. And I'm going to go ahead and do my little bit of padding here. And I'm going to do padding left. And I'm just going to do a little bit of padding 10 pixels. Let me do something egregious first. Let me do like 100 so we can really see it. If we come back, look, pay attention to that T, that red T. Pay attention to that. Look at that red T. and I'm going to refresh. Let me turn off the music. I'll get the hang of this music stuff soon, folks. I'm going to refresh, and there we go. So we can see that the padding increased the distance between the element, the T, and the border 100 pixels. Now, the really cool thing is that you can use the built-in web dev tools to see this. So if I go ahead and I right-click Inspect, this is the inspector tools. And the cool thing is, like, if you scroll down a little bit, you have like this area over here. Can I make this bigger? A little bit. All right. You have this area over here. It's going to show you the computed style, like the style that's being rendered by the browser. And the really cool thing is you come over here. Here's the element. Here's the padding. It shows up green. And then there's the border. So I can move through this and see the different parts of the element all right there. You're also going to see that there's some margin by default, right? Did we put margin on that H1? Nope, we didn't put margin on that H1. That came by default, right? So that's something we're going to have to keep in mind as we kind of progress, is that there's some default margin there. Cool. All right, let's go back. Please make the H2 25 pixels, padding on top and bottom, thick gold border, and margin on the top and bottom. So let's start the H2. So H2, let's do font size 25 pixels. And then we said padding on the top and bottom. So here's the cool thing. Padding actually has 4 values that you can do. And it starts at the top and it goes clockwise. Top, right, bottom, left. All right? Goes clockwise. Top, right, bottom, left. And so if I just want padding on the top and bottom, so let's say I want like 20 pixels on the top. I want 0 on the right. I want 25 pixels on the bottom and 0 on the left. I can do it. Top, right, bottom, left. If I know that I'm going to use the same on top and bottom, I can do that, and it's going to repeat for me. That's going to do 20 pixels on the top, 0 on the right, 20 on the bottom, 0 on the left. So you have those 4 place values. So you don't have to do padding top, padding bottom. You can just use padding with CSS3 and know that there's 4 values for you to fill in. So that's what I'm going to do here. Cool. What was the other thing it needed? Thick gold border and margin on the top and bottom. Margin is going to be the same thing. Margin, we can do the same thing. Let's get a little wild here. 50 pixels on the top. And if we just do 50 pixels, that'll apply to all sides. So if I just left it as 50, it would do 50 on the top, 50 on the right, 50 on the bottom, 50 on the left. So let's leave that on just to see it. And then we need a thick gold border. Let's go ahead and do border. Let's do, what's thick? Like 20 pixels seems like really thick. Solid and gold. All right, let's save it. Let's go back to the browser. Let's refresh. There we go. We got an H2. All right, this H2. If we come down here to the, if I right click on it and inspect, we can see that there's the actual element. There's its padding on the top and bottom. And then there's the margin on all sides. So that's the border on all sides. And that's the margin on all sides. It's pretty cool. Just so he says, that's a thick border. It is. Is there a standard convention for what order to put border specifications in? Because no matter what order I put in, it still processes correctly. A lot of things in CSS, there's kind of like no direct way to do it. I always do size, type, color, but I wouldn't be surprised if like other variations work. If it works, it works. A lot of this stuff, I just go by whatever the MDN does. So if the MDN does it one way, that's typically the way I do it, because I assume that's one of the best practices. All right, let's take a look at these last two. Please make the spans have a thin black border, a little padding, and blue. All right. I almost said spans. What was it? It was thin black, padding, blue. So we'll do color, blue, border, we'll get as thin as possible. So we'll do 1 pixel solid black and a little bit of padding. I'm going to do a little bit of padding on all sides. So I'm just going to do like a nice 5 pixels on all sides. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So you can see the spans having a little bit of padding. Let's right click on one so we can see it. So there's the actual element. There's the 5 pixels of padding on every side. And there's the thin black border. Nice. All right, there's one more. Let's finish that one. Please make the section 25% width, 200 pixels tall, centered with a thin border. I'm going to grab this as a comment so I don't have to like peek back. Remember, universal comments is you paste anything, you highlight it, right? If you have it highlighted, right? So boom, that's highlighted. I can just do command / and it will do a comment. That'll work in HTML, that'll work in CSS, that'll work in JavaScript. Cool. So let's go ahead and make the section. Let's do 25% width. So we'll go ahead and do 25%. Oh, I didn't type width. Width 25%. Let's make it have a height of 200 pixels. And these, are, of course, are just so we can get used to typing stuff out. Now, how can I center it? That's an interesting question. How did you all center it? And let's do the border. Thin. So let's do 2 pixels solid purple. Cool. Ooh, margin auto. That's an interesting one. Cool. Let's save it and see what that does. Let's open it back up. I'm going to close my inspector just so we can see. All right. There we go. So if we look at this section, the cool thing that it's doing, if we look at the margin on it, look at that margin that's being automatically applied to both sides, right? So there's a couple ways we could have done this. The margin auto, I did it because the chat said it, right? Margin auto is going to magically figure out how much margin should be on both sides to center it, right? Since it has a width, this works. So since it's already width of 25%, it'll apply equal margin on both sides to center. Mine said in the chat, margin of 50% on the left. That also works, right? If you just do 50% width on the left, that's going to put 50% on the left, which is going to leave 50% on the other side, and that would work too. You might actually not be 50%. It might be like 75 divided by 2, because if that's 25%, you only have 75% left. So some of the things like that would work too. Now, this is kind of showing you the old school way that we used to have to do layout before we had things like flex and grid, and it really just came down to doing a lot of math. And that's why a lot of people love flex, a lot of people love grid, because you don't have to do the math, you don't have to calculate things like that. So that's cool. All right, that's that. We did that pretty quick. Like I said, all the solutions, I'll zip all this stuff, I'll put it into the follow along materials channel after class. Yeah, KDoge Auto will try to center. All right, cool. Let's keep pushing. It is 9:13. I want to cover like 2 more big topics and then we're done. We're gonna the full 3 hours tonight, folks. I know you're digging deep. You're frying your brain after a long day, but I appreciate you being here. Let's keep pushing. 2 more topics. So the first topic I want to talk about is a starter template. I put together. Yeah, let's get it. I like that, Bugaboo. We in here, K-Cost. I love it. First thing I did is I put together a template for y'all that I think is a really good starting place for any of your projects. So if you're ever working on any HTML or CSS or even JavaScript starting next week, this template's gonna be a really good thing to have saved like in your normal project folder. Just make copies of it and work through it. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up the template just so y'all can take a peek. All right, here is the template. There is an HTML file. There is a CSS folder with some interesting tidbits in there, and a JS folder with a JavaScript file link. So when we get to JavaScript, it works there too. Okay. So in the index.html, there is some fun stuff here. First thing is we have our lang preference set to English. There are a bunch of different lang preferences. If you know the language that the site is going to use, you can set the lang preference to help out the browser. There's even like en-uk, so like there's multiple versions of even like the English lang preference, and tons of other ones for any other language. Then we have a bunch of our meta stuff. And so this meta is things that the browser needs. Remember, anything that's inside the head is stuff that the browser needs, right? Anything that's in the head is stuff the browser needs. So this is just my template. I'm just going to walk you through it so you have it to start with. I'm going to go a little bit fast. You can always kind of rewind the VOD if you need to go a little bit slower. So the first thing we see in the head is this meta char set UTF-8. UTF-8 really just gives you every character known. Like any character you can think of, whether it's like an English character, a Unicode character, a Mandarin character, will all be part of UTF-8. So you're kind of saying to the browser, hey, use this, all the characters should be available. The description is actually what a lot of the search engine use as like the blurb that they show about your site before they click through to the site. So that's really important. You should always have a description on your sites so that it helps you in the SEO world. Next are keywords. Keywords used to be really important back in the day for SEO. Like if we go all the way back to the beginning of the web, the thing that search engines would look at were your keywords, because your keywords should describe what the site is about. Since the search engines would look at your keywords to figure out what your site was about, what do you think people did to abuse that system? Put it in Twitch chat. What do you think people did to abuse the keyword system if that's what the Google and search engines would rank you for? What do you think they did? Yep, Knocked got it. They just put every keyword in there. If you had all the words, if you had a dog website, you wouldn't just put dog. You would start putting German Shepherd. You would put Pitbull. You would put every breed of dog known to humankind into those keywords, right? And hopefully Google would see that and start ranking you for all those things. Eventually, Google realized, I'm using Google as like a euphemism for all search engines, but eventually the search engines realized, oh, everyone's doing these keyword stuffings. Let's actually not pay attention to the keywords that they put in the meta keywords. Let's actually look at the keywords that they put in the text or the content of the page, right? So then they would look at the content that was on your page for keywords. So what people started doing is all the keywords they had in the meta, they started putting in the margins of the website as color white. So if you like inspected a website, there would be all the dogs going down the page known to humankind. You just couldn't see it because the text was white, but they were hoping the search engines would pick that up and rank them for those keywords. So it's a constant battle between like web developers, search engine professionals, and search engine optimization professionals, and the actual search engines themselves. They put out new rules. People find ways of stretching the rules and pushing it forward like that. So that's a whole job. Like you could spend your whole career like trying to optimize content for search engines. The big thing now is that content is always going to be king. There are ways that you can maybe try and figure out to cheat the system, but you're better off just writing good content and Google will hopefully find it. Yeah. K-Doge said that's Black Hat, right? Like we try to break it. Cool. Title is what shows up in the little tab on Chrome or Firefox, whatever browser you're using. And then here are the two really big things I wanted to get to. You'll notice that I linked to a style sheet called Normalize and then my style sheet. Okay. That Normalize, what it is doing is it's saying, you know what? I love the default stylings that come from the browser, right? Because remember, if we go all the way back to class 1, we wrote that H1. That H1 was big, bold, black, and beautiful, much like myself, right? But we didn't tell it to be bold. We didn't tell it to be big. We didn't tell it to do all those things. That was the default styling that came from the browser. What Normalize does is it says, all right, the default styling is good. Let's just make sure the default styling is consistent across all the browsers, right? That's what Normalize does. Now, there are some folks that say, you know what? I never really got used to the default styling. I rather scorch the earth, start from zero with everything. I want my H1s to look exactly like my spans, right? And that's when you would use this other CSS file I have in here called reset. So this is kind of like your first like major decision as a developer. Are you going to use normalize? Are you going to use reset? Are you going to not use any of them, right? And so those are kind of the some of the big early decisions that you're going to make. Normalize tries to keep the consistent default styling. Reset gets rid of all the default styling. You have to do everything from scratch. And we link it before our style sheets so that we can override the styles that come in normalize and reset. The code planner says, should we know how to write these templates manually for job interviews? Yes, you should be able to create a project from scratch. There's no rhyme or reason for why you shouldn't be able to create a project from scratch. And so you should do the first couple by scratch. Blueberry Guac says, could I get a job from this bootcamp? Hell no. Unfortunately not. We're only doing 5 weeks, right? So 5 weeks is not enough time to kind of get you ready for a bootcamp. What this is a really good idea for is to see if you might like this stuff. Do you like HTML? Do you like CSS? Do you like JavaScript? Do you want to keep learning? And the cool thing is, if you do like it, we're going to do a longer bootcamp. And so you can come back for free and do the longer bootcamp and hopefully get yourself on the path to a job. Cool. Now, can it start your job hunt? For sure. All right, so that's kind of the big things that are in here, and then I link to my JavaScript. The last thing I want to point out is that my CSS has some cool stuff in it. All right, my CSS has some cool stuff in it. Has the box model hack already there. Has some stuff to help if you're going to use floats instead of flex or grid. And there's some organization here. Like all the stuff I want to be applied to everything will go my base styles. I'll do my layout here, and then I'll do some additional stuff here. So this is just a template. I wanted you to have it in case you want to start a project and you didn't want to have to do it all from scratch. You should definitely do 1 or 2 on your own to get up to speed, but a lot of the things I'm going to actually do in class, I'm just going to say start with the template. That way you don't waste time connecting things, making sure your CSS is connected, making sure your JavaScript is connected. This already has everything there already connected, so we can jump into coding a little bit quicker. Yeah, Redbird, this is pretty much the standard for everything you would need. Like, there's really not much more you would need to get started. You can definitely add a lot more, but this is definitely the basics. Bites back says, or we just use Tailwind. Yes. Later on. Cool. Let's keep pushing, folks. All right. So I wanted to review some of the layouts, but we're getting pretty late. And since the layouts really technically aren't due until next class, until Thursday, I'm actually going to skip these layouts for right now. And we'll go over them on Thursday just because I want to be respectful of people's time. Blueberry said, hey, React.js is popular. Is that something we learn? In the longer bootcamp, we'll definitely touch on React. But for now, we're just doing the basics, HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript. So we're getting a little close to time. So I'm going to save the layouts. The layouts are technically due for homework next Thursday. So you are still going to work through these layouts, layout 1, 2, and 3 here, right? And these layouts, you're going to be using floats. And I always love to include this, like, how dare you? Remember, we're introducing floats just as a starting point, and we're going to get to grid and flex. So don't worry, we'll get away from them as quickly as possible. But I like to introduce them because there's a lot of legacy code out there. And I think for folks that are just kind of getting new and you might feel a bit more comfortable with math instead of having to memorize stuff, like, it could be helpful. This Thursday, yeah, the layouts are due. The layouts are due this Thursday. Yeah, we got the layouts last Thursday, so they're due on Thursday. Cool. I want to talk through about how I would do these layouts, though, just for some folks that might be stumped and not sure where to go. So if I'm looking at this layout here, what would this be? What would that be? Go ahead and throw it in chat. What would that be if you're trying to do a layout? What would that be? What tag would you use there? Go ahead and throw it in Twitch chat. Knock got it. Izzy got it. Adorante got it. Cookie got it. Ghost got it. Cross got it. Red Ninja got it. Brian got it. Omar got it. Brev got it. K-Cost got it. The Flow got it. K-Dodge got it. Hokic came in close. Orazi got it. Tuccini got it. Cool. It's a header, right? Header. And if that's our header, we can assume that this is probably our footer, all right? And then for the rest of the things in here, we don't have any content. We don't have content. Since we don't have content, we don't really know if it should be a section, a div, an article, right? So since we don't have content, you can kind of pick what you want. I think the biggest semantic decision here that we can maybe make without content might be section. So I would say that we would have a header, a footer, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. Now, these top 3 sections are different than the bottom 2 sections, right? 1, 2, 3, right? Those 3, right? Scream hard and they'll hear you. Those top 3, what I would do is I would give them a class maybe, or maybe I would give these to a class, right? Just so I can differentiate between the two, right? And so let's say I could maybe make all the sections, right? I can maybe make all the sections a width of 33%, right? Give them some height and then float them all to the left, right? So those would be 33% each, all floating to the left. That would get them to sit next to each other, right? And then these bottom 2 would be 50%, float it to the left, and that would sit next to each other. So how I could distinguish between these 2 or those 3 would probably just be a class, right? That's how I would go about it, right? We don't really have any semantic decisions here. We don't have content, so it's kind of hard to see what we would use here. I'm using sections just because if we did fill in content, that's what it would probably be. Divs could be used here fine interchangeably, but I'm just going to go with sections. Remember, don't nitpick in the beginning, right? If you're just new to this, get it up on the board, get it working, and then come back and refactor later on. All right. Once again, I'm going to say header, footer, right? And then maybe another section, a section, and a section. We might, if we had some content, this could maybe be in a side if it was like a sidebar or something like that. But we don't have any content, so we don't know. So I keep my header, I keep my footer. I keep this section at 100%, maybe a little bit smaller of height. This section I can maybe make like 30 and this one 70 and then put them next to each other, right? And so that would just float them next to each other, and that's how they would get there. Yeah. So that's how I go about this one. And we're going to go over these all next class. I just want to, in case folks are stuck, they don't know how they should go about it, just want to quickly talk about it. There's one other concept I want to talk about, and then we're going to break for tonight. All right. Header, footer. Let's say these sections are all the same width, so I can maybe give these 3 a class if they're the same width, right? Maybe those 3 are the same width, so maybe this is, just to make the math easy on us, like 20, 20, 20, and then that leaves us 40% left over, and there we go. So that'd be 100%. They float them all to the left. They'll sit next to each other. And once again, remember, this is float, so we're going to get the flex and grid and all that lovely stuff later. So I'd put them all in those widths and then float them all. So since these 3 both have 20, 20, 20, I could probably just give them a class, or better yet, I could set all the sections to be 20% and then just give this a class or an ID. Yeah, bugaboo. Office hours every Saturday. Come on through. If things don't make sense, you have lots of questions, come through to office hours. It's basically just us answering questions and hanging out for 2 to 3 hours. So if things aren't making sense, things aren't clicking, definitely get on Discord. Definitely ask questions on Discord, and then come on through to our office hours on Saturday. Office hours start at 12 p.m. Eastern time every Saturday. Cool. So those are the layouts. We're going to go in detail over those on Thursday. Just I know that some folks might have been struggling a little bit, so I wanted to give you like my thoughts around them. And I want to talk real quickly about responsive websites. I know we're almost over. I just want to give me like 4 minutes. 4 minutes. I just want you to start thinking about these topics. Just think about these topics for me so that on Thursday we can spend more time talking about them. So far, we've only really dealt with websites that work on like one device or like one screen size. But nowadays, everyone has multiple devices. They might have a phone that they interact with your site on. They might have a desktop, a laptop, a tablet. And we want our sites to work well across all these devices. And it's not too long ago that sites really didn't do this. We used to have fixed websites that would be one size, normally around like 960 pixels, and that was it. Here's a version of UPS's website in 2017. It was still fixed. There's some tricks that were going on there, but this is something that like has been around for a while, and there's something that really fundamentally changed, right? That fundamentally changed how we interact with the web, and that's our mobile phones, right? The mobile explosion changed everything. Now we needed our devices not only work on our laptops and desktops, but we needed them to work on mobile phones. So this idea of responsiveness came into play. And so next class, we're going to spend some time starting to think about, all right, how do we make our sites look good across every device, right? And the key thing that's going to help us in this endeavor are media queries. Media queries are like special things we can put in our CSS that applies those CSS rules only when you're at a specific screen size. So this rule right here is only being applied between 0 pixels and 600 pixels in width. So if you're not on like a mobile phone, you're not going to see the H1B blue. So then we can start writing media queries for all our different device sizes. There's some tricks to that. Or like I shouldn't say that, not really device size anymore, but like where our designs look best. We can start from mobile and go up to desktop. We can go from desktop down to mobile. We're going to talk about things like mobile first development. And we're really going to talk a lot about these media queries and how we can start using them to make sure our sites work well across multiple devices. Okay. So don't worry about the homework. There's a lot of content we got through here. You all put in a lot of work. It was a lot of coding along. It was, we had some technical difficulties in the middle. So kudos to you. I appreciate you all taking some time after your long day to kind of come hang out, start working on yourself and learning some code and having some fun. So we're going to stop here for tonight. We're going to save the responsiveness stuff for next class on Thursday. Next class is 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you had some fun. I hope you learned some things. If you're new, make sure you go ahead and give us a follow so more folks can see and join the free bootcamp. Join our Discord, just ! Discord. We have tons of folks in there. Shout out Bo, shout out Waylid, shout out all the mentors that are helping folks every single day review code, things like that. I would love to do a raid real quick before you all leave. Let's send some good vibes to another channel. So I'm going to go ahead and raid another channel. And if you want to hang around, just give them some views, give them some love. Maybe hang around if you're going to work on some more code. So I'm going to find a smaller a streamer here, and we're going to go send some good vibes their way. So thank you all for spending some time with us tonight. I appreciate y'all. Let's go ahead and find somebody here. All right. I think I found somebody. Sometimes we have some good raids. Sometimes we have some not so great raids. So let's find somebody that we can. All right, here we go. Somebody, small streamer here. Let's go ahead and grab this. All right, I am going to raid them. So if you're here, let's go ahead and raid. All right. Thank you all for hanging out. The raid's going to start in a few minutes. Let's go ahead. Let's send, let's say good vibes in their chat. All right, let's raid. Just say good vibes, say hello, hang around, give them some follows, and I'll see you all on Thursday.